All right, let's call this meeting of the Comprehensive Plan Steering Committee to order. I think in your email you received a number of items from Abby that lay out what we're going to try to accomplish tonight, and I'll go over briefly what that agenda is. But she sent us a memorandum that she titled Meeting Summary for April 11, 2019, and that really does give a nice narrative summary of what we're going to cover tonight, as well as some of the data. I think that she may end up, some of the points that she's going to be talking about in a few minutes. We also received minutes from the prior meeting and naturally the agenda as well. So we've got a number of very important things to accomplish tonight. The primary topic really is the visioning session that we discussed at our last meeting, and we have some consultants have joined us, and we'll explain all of that when we come to it. And then survey has been out, not closed yet, but the response has been quite good. We'll talk about a little bit about that. Go around and people can describe what they've done. No pressure though, some of us haven't done very much, so if you have, great, let us know what that is. If not, it's quite all right. And that really will probably consume all of the time that we have together. So there'll be introductions. We'll go around the table once again. We'll introduce the consultants for the visioning session and the public participation process. Discuss the format and design of that with the consultants. Talk about a little bit about the survey. Go around talking about our sections, and then we'll talk about our next meeting prior to the visioning session. Okay, so I thought rather than go around the table, we could go by the topic groups that we've been assigned for the plan. That way maybe people will get used to who's doing what here. So I'm going to start with myself only because I've got land use listed first. This is in the order of the plan. So land use, myself, Jack Wigan.
Land use, Linda Walsh.
Town centers.
John Rogers.
And Kate Wynn.
Okay, you're together. Perfect. Housing.
Sheila Haley Longville.
And Barbara Shea.
Together. Hey, I like the. Did you arrange it this way?
Yeah, she did.
No, I'm thinking people really getting along, but actually Abby just put the name tag. So, economic development.
Yep. Peter Neville.
Alone.
Alone.
We did have Phil Shapiro has taken on some additional professional responsibilities, and he asked to be excused from the committee, which is a significant loss. But Peter is more than capable of doing this, and we'll have to get to somebody else.
Whatever I could do.
Okay, excellent. Thank you. Natural and cultural resources.
Nancy Donahue.
And Janica can't make it, right? Community facilities. And Phil is, Phil Ramos, the other person. And we do expect Phil tonight?
He was intended to come.
Okay. Open space and recreation.
Paula Jacobson.
And Charlie is not going
Charlie's
to be able
not
to
here
make it. Transportation.
Steve Olenoff. And Trevor Lobenstein.
And resiliency and sustainability. The two Canes. And then implementation is the last section, but staff will be working with the staff for that. Also present is Trevor from the Planning Board, or formerly.
Formally, yes.
And so welcome.
Thank you.
Anybody else? Nora, I saw come in. Where is she? Nora. Staying out of the line of fire.
That's her usual spot, isn't it?
Thanks for coming, though, Nora. And we would like to hear from you. All right, so why don't we get started then? Abby, if you would like to introduce the consultants, and I think also talk a little bit about the process for selection and so forth, in general, of the consultants, what we did.
Thank you. So since we last met, I think it was maybe in February, we put out a request for qualifications for a consultant. To lead the vision session. It was really focused on the public facilitation and public participation, helping us design this event, this town-wide event. So we did receive 3 responses in early March, and we selected Daphne Politis of Community Circle and Judy Barrett of Barrett Planning have partnered together, And here also tonight is Fiona.
Fiona Coughlin. I am with Judy
Barrett.
Shea.
Thank you.
Oh,
So they have a lot of experience doing this kind of work. They've done a lot of facilitation, community engagement, also have prepared many community comprehensive plans, and also other studies, economic development, housing studies, in a number of other towns. Done a lot of similar work in other communities for what we were looking for. So Jack, Steve, and I did meet with them last week. So tonight we really want to talk about planning for the vision session on May 18th. And then we also had set a date a week prior, May 9th, I think was the date we had selected. Thursday,
Correct.
May 9th?
May 9th.
Okay. May 9th, that way we could also meet right before the vision session to help finalize any details and help prepare for that Saturday workshop.
so Daphne and Judy, if you want to introduce yourselves, add anything relevant regarding your background you think would be useful to say at this time, kind of your understanding of the assignment, and then I think if you would want to lead us through how you would like us to help you design that or whatever else you need from us.
Well, thank you. So Judy and I have worked in many communities throughout Massachusetts and other states, basically doing planning of different sorts, comprehensive planning, or Judy does a lot of housing, economic development. And in each of those planning exercises, we always have a very robust public participation process that we use to as the bones of the plan. So this is something we do pretty much every day in different communities and in different ways, because what we try to do is customize it to your community. And that's where you will really be helpful to us in helping us understand what your community is about, how your community organizes, how your community listens, so we can have them listen to us, invite them, and then, ways of engaging them. Not just at this one meeting, even though that's really where our task starts and ends, but we will leave with you some other thoughts about what else you could do to keep that process going and keep the momentum going. Because it's really important that people don't feel that they just came, they gave their ideas, and then you just went off and forget about it. So kind of couching this within a whole process is really important. And we're just here for that one piece, but we want to keep the process in mind throughout and keep that connected to that larger process. Is there anything you'd like to add, Judy?
No, I think that is a perfectly good cover.
Okay.
The only thing I will say is that I was at a meeting last week. We're doing some work in Littleton where there's a train station, and they're thinking about development around the train station. And one of the other consultants on the team took me aside and he said, "You're a legend, right?" And it was a very unnerving moment when I realized, my gosh, I've been in this field this long,
Yes.
so I'm not going to add anything. I'll defer to you on this.
How many years for a legend?
32.
I think it's at 30 you become
30.
a legend,
I
right?
was at 30, yes, I don't know, it was kind of funny anyway.
So anyway, we're introduced to where we've had a terrific conversation with them, and we kind of decided that a May 18th, which is a Saturday, worked best in terms of timing, not too late, not too early, to allow us time to plan it. And some of the topics that were discussed that Daphne will probably want to launch into is the time of day, some of the logistics matters, whether there'll be food there, how are we going to publicize it, and people's ideas on that and stuff like that. But maybe you're better at this than I am, so maybe you'd want to create your conversation and then invite the participation of the
Please,
committee.
thank you. So, because there is a lot to do to prepare, we decided that instead of meeting just once, like both have just said, we're going to meet twice. The first today, we're going to talk about three things. We're going to talk, one, about the format of the forum, but in general terms, so at least you know what you're inviting people to attend. Right? What are you asking them to attend? You need to know. You need to agree, and you need to have given your ideas about that. So that's the first thing. We'll talk about the forum in its format in general terms. Then we'll talk about how do we attract attention and get people to attend. And then the third piece is how do we engage them to actually come, and what are the details of that? So we thought we would allot 30 minutes to each of those tasks. And then when we meet again on the 9th, there we will talk about the forum in its detail, in the format, what your roles will be there. We'll have to do some facilitator training because we hope that you will want to take on the role of facilitating the small group discussions that we will propose to you, and hope that you will agree. And then there'll be one more week left for outreach. So we'll have to decide what more can we do to let people know that this is happening, to increase its importance on their to-do list, and get them to come. So that's what we'll do at that last meeting, the last meeting before the visioning session on the May 9th. But today we're going to cover those 3 topics. So why don't we start, because there really is quite a lot to cover. And we want to hear from you and get your approval before taking our next steps, and before coming back to you with our proposals. So first of all, based on our discussions that we had last week, we start to think about an agenda. So you'll have to excuse me, I don't usually wear glasses and they're not bifocals. I have to keep taking them on and off. Just have to explain that. First of all, what is the purpose of this? The purpose is to identify some common values, right? And some common community priorities. What do people care about? What do people want to ensure remains, is preserved, perhaps even enhanced? What do people want to change or improve? What do people think is missing? And kind of lifting their eyes to look out further than their everyday, day-to-day. And considering trends, considering what is happening in the surrounding communities. And we want to do that in ways that aren't leading, right? We want to give them some information to work with, so it's not totally open-ended, because you have been collecting things. You have a previous plan, although it's, almost 20 years old now, but there is information there that could be useful. Then you have your open space and recreation plan, your housing production plan. So all of that is useful. And you have your survey that is very ripe. So we want to be sure to use all that. It's not, we don't want to reinvent the wheel. So we thought we'd start by having a PowerPoint where we would just introduce what is a plan, what is a comprehensive plan anyway, why would one community do one, and then share some of the information. So one is this idea that communities such as Westwood that are, pretty great, right? I missed the turn to get into the town hall, and I went down further. I thought, oh my God, what's that? Well, that's the library. Wow. Look at that. It's just, it's beautiful. So a lot of people that live in beautiful towns such as this think they don't want anything to change. So why would they bother planning or coming to a meeting to talk about the future? Because that would only be if something were worrisome, right? So we have to get the idea across that just because you don't want any change doesn't mean you don't plan. So one of the thoughts we had at the last meeting was that on the cover of the 2000 plan, there is what we were told was an iconic horse farm that is now a subdivision. So actually, Nora shared that with us, so we'd like to get a photograph of that and say, look, this is, people thought, we love this, it's not going to change, but it changed because there was no, proactive planning to preserve it. So that's one of the concepts to kind of get across about why plan, right? The other is to collect information that Abby's busy compiling now, but what was implemented from the last plan. So people see value in the plan, right? What if things were actually implemented that they can see, that they live day to day, then that's a valuable thing to do. So we'll share some of that information. Then a brief summary of the open space and recreation plan and the housing production plan, because those are recent, and that's sharing an information base. It's not leading, right? It's just saying these are the facts, these are findings, and then people interpret them as they will, right? They will want to preserve something, change something. And then the survey results. So we would love to summarize those and present them so that people can agree or disagree. They can say, oh, really? That's what most people thought? Well, I'd like to put, my 2 cents in because I don't agree. Or, yeah, I really agree. I'm strongly in support of that. So it's a way of inspiring conversation. And then what we'd like to do is, after we've given this brief really brief PowerPoint, even though it has a lot in it, is to break up into groups, into these small groups, and have them be facilitated. Everyone discussing the same, or rather responding to the same questions. So no one feels like, well, what are they talking about over there? I'd rather be there. So everyone talks about the same things, and then come back and share the priorities, not share what you talked about, and go on and on, how sometimes that can happen. It's just, we are very specific about what is to be shared at the meeting. Then, of course, everything is written up, and people can go back and see in great detail, but at the meeting, it's only the priorities that are shared, each group's priorities. So it's very, we want to manage it very well, keep the conversation facilitated, which means it's managed, but it's also helping to balance those people who have a harder time speaking up versus those people who tend to dominate. So it's all about keeping it, I don't want to say under control, because it's not controlling it, it's just keeping it manageable and thinking of what we want to come out in the end. And what we want to come out in the end is we want some useful, meaningful information that will be used to form goals and policy objectives. So the questions will be designed so that the answers will help us get there. They'll be open-ended, but when we get that information, it'll be useful to us so we can form those goals. And then also people will give us ideas about how they think they can be achieved, and we'll document those as well. So in the end, you'll have a vision statement, some goals, strategies about how to achieve them, and some policy objectives. And that, we would suggest, should form the basis of your plan. I mean, that needs to be tweaked, that needs to be, is this feasible? How can this be phased? Is there political will for this? And you need to it's an iterative process, right? But that would be the starting point. So that's what we would contribute to your process, is designing this beginning part of the process so that then you get that base upon which you then continue. So in addition to an agenda that people will have, we also thought we might like to have a handout, fun facts. And if you have any, please share them with us. We've started some, and there are things like, what's the population, land use, economy, transportation, but also history, like the fact that there's a cave that King Philip and his men hid inside during the King Philip's War. The fact that the Continental Drummer Boy during the Battle of Bunker Hill is buried in the old Westwood Cemetery. That Westwood is the home of the oldest animal pound in the United States. So, fun facts. So if you think of any, send them our way. Maybe send them to Abby. She can send them our way. And we'll also be looking through factual material to develop this. And we'll try to make it, Fiona will help, to make it fun and attractive.
Yes. Yep.
The other thing is we like to have, it's like a big sticky wall that we put up on a wall. And part of the process of a comprehensive plan is really identifying what makes a community unique and then trying to preserve and enhance that. So we want to understand what people think of when they think of what makes Westwood unique. So we have this question, and people can just jot down the answer, and then this wall is literally sticky, and they go up and they put it up, and then people can gather and talk about each other's responses, and I'm pointing over there, it's just, that would be where it would be in this room.
Yeah.
If it were this room, that's where it would be, because the wall is large enough. So that would be another activity. We try to make it so that there are lots of ways in which people can give their responses. And there are lots of ways in which we can understand what people feel and what they think. And really, this is not, it's not actual information gathering, right? It's understanding what people's feelings and thoughts are and what their perceptions are. And sometimes their perceptions may even be incorrect about a fact. But that's important for us to know,
Right.
because then we know how to respond to that. So again, it's important to allow people different ways and give them, and some people like to write and be more private, other people like to stand up and tell everyone. So we want to give different people different opportunities. So let's see. Then, okay. that's, any questions or thoughts about the general format of the forum? As I said, we'll get into more specifics next time.
So will there be some overview of how a comprehensive plan process works for the people as part of their
Yes,
introduction?
as part of the introduction, absolutely.
And a little background on what's happening already in town, what
Yes.
has happened, what's in
Mhm.
process, so that nobody's saying, oh, we should
Right.
put some housing above retail somewhere.
Right.
Oh,
Oh,
it's
by the
happening?
way, yeah.
So something like that, okay.
Yes, absolutely.
So-
And if they do say that, then we know that that message hasn't gone out, right?
Or they don't drive down
Right.
Route 1A.
That's
I've
true.
never been to Wegmans.
Right.
Those
Okay,
are
so-
really good points, Barbara. Like the Islington Center thing, or like the fact of the schools thing. The schools thing is going to become a question, I think, in a lot of people's mind. What's the relationship of this process to what's going on with the schools? And we'll have to explain that.
Oh, and you'll have to explain that to us as well, because that happens in a lot of communities. Schools have always their own process, and people that are very involved in the school, they want to come there and talk only about the schools, so we need to talk about it.
And I think our town is pretty open about that, but there's a process that's going on now
Right.
looking at that specifically. So
Right.
I think our take is that we wouldn't necessarily want to step into the middle of that and interfere with the progress that they're
Nor
making.
would we want that to take over this process.
Right, for sure.
And we know how that can happen.
Yes, we do.
So that was it. I like that point.
So
Yes.
that's your role, is to make sure someone who really wants a hockey rink in town isn't standing for 2 hours taking over the meeting?
That's right.
All right.
Absolutely. And also, it will be your role, and we will give you tools to help you to do that. So you will be helping at these small group discussions, and we will be coming around to make sure, and, we'll have a code. Maybe it'll be pulling your ear if it's getting out of hand, but it's really about letting everybody have a chance at speaking and not being just about one issue. It's about the whole town.
Right.
It's about the future of the whole town in all of its aspects: housing, economic development, natural resources, open space, recreation, transportation, land use, public facilities and resources, historic and cultural. It's everything. So we can't let it just be about a hockey rink.
Other thoughts? Unless Barbara, you
Sorry,
have
I
more?
can't stop. No, but so people are going to be made aware of the fact that we're visioning for the future, not thinking that tomorrow I want my kindergartner at Sheehan School,
Right.
not somewhere down on Gay Street.
Right.
Right? Okay.
Right.
so-
And the questions will be designed to help people lift their eyes higher than tomorrow.
But they may come in wanting to talk about making sure
Right,
their
Yes,
kids.
that's
are-
right.
That's why people come to meetings, right? To
Often
voice their
that's their
particular-
Their
motivation.
interest in whatever their issue is.
Right.
So when we, next time when we go over the facilitator training, we have ways of dealing with that. Because if someone, does come to the meeting for that, we need to respect that they did come, right?
Absolutely.
And we also need to respect that they have a concern. It may not be one that's within the scope of the comprehensive plan, but we do need to have a space, and we literally have a box at the
Yeah.
upper right-hand corner on the large pad where we would write that down. So we would, kind of express that we've listened and honor it, and it would be documented, but it also is outside the boundaries of the comprehensive plan. So I think, there are ways that, and we will talk about that at our next time. But please keep that issue alive, because it's very important. Many times people come because they have a specific motivation.
We have sometimes too, in communities where people knew that someone was probably going to be that way at the meeting, had a table kind of off to the side where if someone just really wanted to talk about an issue and was having a lot of trouble working within the structure of the meeting, it was easy for the facilitator to say, we want to hear what you have to say. We sort of need to keep going with this script, but so-and-so over there is able to spend time with you and continue this conversation. So go talk to so-and-so. We always laugh on the team, like who's going to end up in that role. But it's a
If
very...
it's a really burning controversial
Yeah.
issue, then that can be important.
Yeah,
Like, if
it can
people
be very
feel
helpful.
If the people are angry or very upset, then,
Yeah.
But otherwise, we try to make it so that we want to know that person who wants their child in kindergarten. We also
Absolutely.
want to know
Right.
what else they think
Right.
about other issues,
Right.
right? Because their child is only going to be in kindergarten for 1 year. We need to know what they think. So we'd like to try to facilitate that. Anybody, questions,
Balancing
comments?
act.
So, speaking of balancing, I was really
I just wanted to be sure that when we do the FAQs, that those are balanced as well, because we don't want people to feel alienated because the FAQs aren't even interesting to them. That it's a lot about King whoever's whatever that's happened, the cave. Like, that's great,
Right.
but I don't want a lot of cave FAQs.
Yes. Well, you will have an opportunity to review it and to comment on it, because you will know better than we will how most people will react and
Well,
what
I
people
kind
are
of would like to
interested in.
propose that each group provide 3 or 4 if they could, so that it's a nice.
That'd be
smattering.
nice.
That'd be great for us.
And then the other thing, because I can't stop either, Barbara, once I start talking. I think it would be super cool to make it like they do at the movies, where when people are arriving, this thing is already flipping through, versus a handout, that it's a presentation that's.
Like a continuous PowerPoint
Yeah.
group. Yeah.
Right, so there's something to kind of chat with people about, or if you don't want to chat, you can just blankly.
I like that.
We could do
do both, yeah.
We could do that. We actually just
So-
did that for another meeting, continuous loop. What is a master plan?
Exactly.
Yeah, we
When's
did
the
that.
last time we did a master plan, amongst other cave-related?
We're not going to be
Don't forget
doing
the
cave FAQs.
Don't forget the animal pound. Don't forget the animal pound.
Yeah.
That was good, Kay. You can talk as long as you want. Anybody else? Yes.
So are do we talk about addressing the need to get CPA funding, and that we can't get that without the comprehensive plan? And is there any thought to an elevator version of how we can present that, so that,
CPA, you said?
yeah, the Community Preservation Act, so, I mean,
Well, you could
That's
get
a
it
big
without a
part of-
comprehensive plan,
Oh, yeah.
but.
You have
but-
to
oh, I
vote
thought
on
that
it.
that was meant, that we had to have
No,
this, or
no.
else.
No,
The
but when you
comprehensive-
have CPA funds, typically the committee will create a community preservation plan, which is really sort of programming how you're going to make spending decisions for the fund.
Okay, I was under the impression that we couldn't.
So
No.
you're
Have it.
probably thinking about that, what Judy just said.
Okay.
It's a different plan.
Okay,
But the comprehensive plan can help you to get other grant funding.
okay,
And we will mention that.
okay, great.
And the open space and recreation plan that was just recently adopted is a requirement to
For that.
get state funding for open space. So
Yeah.
you're on the right track. So, but there'll be people, I assume, that will want to talk about CPA. So
And-
that's
and-
certainly a topic.
And also,
that can
I'd
be
like to
talked
say
about.
that in the visioning session, we try to stay away from specific policy decisions. It's not just yet, because the CPA is a tool, right? It's a funding mechanism to achieve certain goals. We're first trying to establish what are those goals. So if we see that there are goals that are very strongly supported that have to do with open space preservation, historic preservation, affordable housing creation, then the CPA is a very
It's
relevant tool.
Yep.
So it may seem slow as a process, but we do have to do it step by step in order for people to, to come along. I mean, if we need to know, what are people feeling? What are they thinking? Set those goals, and then, okay, what are some of the ways to achieve them? What are the best ways? What are the most feasible ways? What has more political will? Can CPA pass here? You know what I mean? But we have to do it.
But to start with that, some people will
Some
feel
people
like,
will
oh, well,
just-
people are just trying to push a CPA agenda, so it's
Exactly.
actually better to connect it to live goals.
Exactly.
And we'll go over that a little bit in the summary too, because we've had a lot of early discussions about that, because during the open space and recreation plan update that the planning board adopted at the end of February. So that's where the goals of pursuing CPA
I see.
came up.
Sure,
that was
and
the
that's a
discuss-
very
So it's kind of at same time as we're
Right.
starting this committee.
Yeah.
It had come up.
But
for
that's a very
discussion
relevant
lot.
place for it to come up.
Right.
I mean, one of the most relevant places, right?
Yeah. So we'll just have to explain in the intro what we're doing now, and then the open space and recreation plan was separate, because I think we had both going on at the same time a little bit in the early winter, so some people were confusing the two plans.
And we will talk about how to make that less confusing, right? So anything else about what we've talked about so far?
I'm sorry if I'm
No, don't be
confused
sorry.
or missed something, but there was not one question about CPA funding in the survey, and was that intentional? There was nothing about, would you want to adopt the Community Preservation Act if that opportunity arose? There was not one
We were
question.
trying to stay away from questions that had an answer like that. In other words, we're looking for kind of almost what Daphne was talking about, kind of higher level things. What is it that you like, what is it you don't like, what direction should we go in, rather than, I want to do CPA. Because as I think Daphne did a good job explaining, that you would only want to do that if you really thought that one of the primary objectives should be the preservation of more open space historic structures or
Or
affordable
creation of
housing.
community housing. Yeah.
Right. So that's what we're trying to get to. We're trying to get to that answer to that question. That there is historic structures or historic landscapes that are not being preserved here, and we need a mechanism to do that. And we say, great. And then as she was saying, CPA is one of them.
Those
And
were
then we can get
definitely-
there.
But if the same people who wanted that also wanted the taxes to go down, which
Mhm.
they're not.
Right, which is what happens a lot.
Right.
Yeah.
So that's good. And the other reason why we didn't, there were questions on open space in the original survey, and we decided that we had a limited number of questions that people were going to tolerate, and a plan had just been completed, and they had done a survey, and we looked back at the questions on that survey, and we were kind of asking the same question again, and we didn't think either that, we thought that was redundant for one, and then probably irritating to people who had answered the question the first time, and now we're asking it again as if we were trying to get a different answer. And we didn't think that that was necessarily going to be productive. However, the topic can certainly come up. There is an open space section in this plan, so we'll be taking it on. I think the people who will be doing that will be hopefully drawing in large part from what's in that plan, and then enhancing it to the extent that our process decides that it needs to be enhanced.
And we'll get a copy of it.
The open space
Is it on the
Oh, yes.
It's on
town
there.
website
Yes.
already? Because it wasn't the last time we met. But
Right,
it's
'cause
since
it-
been adopted. and
Yes,
it's
it
on
was
there.
adopted by the planning board at the end of February, so it still needs state approval, but I can send everyone the February planning board approved plan. And the planning board kept the hearing open because the state might come back with some more suggestions after that. So once the state adopts it, then it's a final approved plan. So I'll send that to everyone though.
Hi, thank you for coming, by the way. So I recently retired from the planning board, and like this is bringing me flashbacks to some of our really like lightning rod projects that happened in the 3 years I was there. I was just thinking, I mean, obviously we can't make a half of the visioning session about like introducing people to too many different town topics, but I'm just sort of making a list of town things that have been occurring in the past, let's say 5 years, that at our planning board meetings, and Steve, Steve, Jack, myself, Abby, Nora have all lived this in the past several years. Is, you know, the affordable housing balance of units in town is a big hot topic that everyone wants to
Bet it
bring into
is.
every conversation. Traffic is another huge one, and these are probably not shockers, but it's probably every community in Massachusetts. But there's something called the Gay Street Sidewalk Project, which has been a very hotly contested thing. The University Ave project, which is by and large done, but it's still sort of evolving. The schools question, which has already come up. And then someone's mentioned the Islington Center development, which was a very hotly contested and well-attended sort of planning board process that went through. So I don't know if at least anyone who's doing facilitation should be armed with at least a little data about all those things to try to like shoot down the obvious questions that are going to sort of impact, I think, a lot of those discussions would probably be prudent in a sense. So.
Oh, that's a good idea.
Yeah.
So that would fall on Abby.
Yep.
Sorry.
But you know, that being said,
Or Trent.
maybe
Yeah,
also
sure,
we could
thanks.
open with a disclaimer that the facilitator doesn't need to be an expert on all things Westwood.
Well, actually,
I agree.
but actually that's true.
Yeah.
Because what we're trying to determine, even though those issues were an important backdrop to people's experience, what we're doing now is saying, forget all that, let's look forward,
Yeah, well,
and let's
that's
try to
the
see
better way
what
to
do
get
people
it,
care
yeah.
about in a bigger way, right? Not about a sidewalk, but do you care about walkability? Why do you care about it? Do you care about it because it's health and wellness? Do you care about it because it's safety? Do you care about it because it promotes community gathering? Do you care about it because it promotes independence for elders and for children? And so let's forget about what happened at that Gay Street sidewalk. Let's think about what do we want in Westwood in the future and why? And then, do we agree, and what are the priorities? Because once all the wish lists come out, then that's another very important thing that we try to do and try to accomplish over and over again, really. But at this meeting is our first cut at, okay, this is what everyone has said, and usually it's really very, thoughtful commentary. But now, what are the most important things that most people agree on? Because obviously, resources are not limitless. So really, you don't need to know. In fact, oftentimes we're in the position, we just arrive at a community, we don't know anything about it, and we have to facilitate. And it's sometimes even better because you can say, really, I have no idea, but let's think about the future now. So I think you're right. Disclaimer.
That's lucky.
I also think it's important for people to understand that ultimately when the success of implementing any comprehensive plan is you start by building on your strengths, not your weaknesses. So I think an important piece of any conversation in these visioning meetings is to really be able to inventory the things that people love, because there must be things about this community that people love. It's a beautiful town. People spend a lot of money to move here and to stay here. So kind of understanding, maybe there was a big controversy about a sidewalk or whatever, and we respect that, but you're going to build on the things that are good and kind of what are they, and try to get some agreement about what those things are, because those are the special things that you hang on to when you're in the middle of controversy 5 years after you've finished a master plan. So just keep that in mind.
So in order to kind of elevate this in people's minds, because like you were saying earlier, there are a lot of times when there are a lot of planning projects, especially in an affluent community, that are going on at the same time. And so, here's just another one. I went to that one, why should I go to this one? But this is a comprehensive plan. All other planning is related to it. And this is like the umbrella, right? It's the umbrella for the open space and recreation plan, it's the umbrella for the housing production plan, and any other planning processes. So, like the Islington Center, that all comes under this umbrella. But it's difficult to expect that people will know that. So one thing we try to do is try to brand the process. Now, it's very important to understand we're not branding the town. We're branding the comprehensive planning process. So I have brought some examples. We don't have a lot of time to do this, right? The branding part. So we have to think about whether or not you would like to do it. And so what do we think about? We think about a logo and a tagline, and that would be used on all visuals, all materials. Some communities even make T-shirts, refrigerator magnets, try to use it as a promotional thing.
That's what Littleton did.
Yeah. And Acton also made these banners, these big banners that were, flapping in the wind. And so it becomes, it elevates the community's planning efforts and its importance. And it also takes away the words like master plan, comprehensive plan. What does that mean? People think, well, I don't have anything to say about that. But it's all about their everyday life. But the words master plan, comprehensive plan don't express that. So here are some examples. We gave them all away. No, we'll share here. So if you just look at the second page, the words that people use. These are ones that we've worked in. Imagine Somerset, ... It's not that, creative, but it's definitely more expressive. Holden tomorrow. Very simple, but it says it all without using a lot of words. Methuen, planning our future together. East Boston Camps, explore your town's backyard. Vision 2020, that one we kind of can't use anymore. It's going to be next year. Planning for tomorrow, our town, our future. Amherst generations growing together. Southbridge moving forward together. Northfield preserving our past, planning our future. So those are some of the words that are used. And then here are some of the images. And the other thing that has to be decided once you as a group decide that you'd like to do this is how are we going to do it? So are there extra funds to hire a graphic designer? Is there a graphic designer that some of you know, part of your family, your neighbor in the community that would just like to participate and contribute in this way. But all these decisions have to be made fairly quickly because we need to start using the brand if we're going to do it. The other thing we've done is held contests.
Yeah.
Now, to do like a townwide contest at this point might be difficult, but what about a high school contest? We did that, if you look on page 4, that one, the Holding Tomorrow,
Yep.
that was done by a high school student. And doing that also attracts attention of their parents, and they have to come to the meeting to see who wins. And so there are, hidden agendas. Then if you look at, you see, they're different. So say on page 4, the Lexington Center Collaborative, that graphic is a representation of the linear downtown.
Yeah,
right?
that's really cool.
Isn't that cool?
Yeah.
Then the Southbridge one is a representation of the river, you see? So, and then that Northfield is
My campus.
her campus, that's where she went to school. Then on page 6, a local artist in Kittery made this. And people loved that, even though it's not actually a commonly used kind of logo, but there were T-shirts made and mugs, and people loved that. And then this one, on page 6, Dairy, we're working there right now, Judy, Fiona, and I, and this was, this tree is, dairy in Gaelic means oak tree, apparently, and this is that. And it's also trying to say there are new leaves because manufacturing has left the town and has to find new ways of moving forward. So this is the new growth. So sometimes it's nice to tell that story too, if you have a logo that has a story that expresses something about the future. So, and here, these two on page 7, these were not things that we've worked on, but they just were very straightforward, simple, and communicated, I thought, really well. Be heard, Boulder. Let's talk, Mercer Island. Right? That's really what it's about, a community conversation. So, your thoughts. First of all, you have to decide, would you like to do this? And then we can decide if you do, how to do it and all of that.
The town sounds look just like that tree.
Can I just interject too that in Littleton, where Daphne and I worked, they weren't sure they had somebody in the community who might be able to do the graphics, but there are websites you can go to where you literally can throw some ideas out and people will compete to try to have their logo design purchased. And so Littleton had thrown out some ideas, agriculture, orchards. Littleton's out in
Well, we
farming
did a
country.
brainstorm, and then
Yep.
we kind of pulled together the ideas, the colors,
Yep.
the words, the images.
And they're still
then-
using that logo on anything involved with the implementation of that plan. The plan was completed 2 years ago. Anything that relates to master plan implementation, that logo is still on it. So they're using that to kind of continue to promote the idea that this plan was done and now it's being carried out. Why are we doing these things? It's because it's in our master plan. So
And
they've made good use of
it
it.
keeps the momentum going.
Yes, it does.
keeps the momentum going.
Yep.
So I think we've promoted it. Now they have to decide, because it is also a matter of resources, time,
Right.
and maybe money. We don't know. So first decide what you think.
I think it's nice to involve the schools in the process. I think every year there's a Westwood Day, and last year the logo for Westwood Day was designed by a high school student, and it's great. And I think it just inspires them and creates a lot of positive energy. And
So there must have been a way into the school, into the appropriate department, right?
Yeah.
So does anybody know that? Yeah.
Oh.
So who that would be?
Yep.
And whether they could say, in a couple of weeks, could you?
I can ask them, but we also have a son that's a graphic designer. So.
Oh, well then, thank you.
Yay.
But I agree, I think the
Sounds great.
schools, if the school can do it, I think that's good too.
But we have a backup plan.
Yeah.
Well, if you present it to the school, you have to have a winner. So you're locked into a winner, and if it's something that, there are no logos that we like, that we're stuck. So I think it's a great idea, but we could be stuck. And maybe we go this route first, but I don't know what timeline, just.
Yeah, we also have exchange student who's in the graphic arts program at the high school right now too, so. But, either way, I mean, we can get Stephen to do it, and
At least get them to do some
do
samples.
something to look
So-
at least.
If we did as well, I'm just curious from some of your past experiences, how did, like, for any of the high school examples you know of, how did they pick? Like, what was the process?
So you have to come up with criteria, right?
Right.
And you have to state those ahead of time.
Sure.
So that would be something we would do together. One of the things, though, is to look at, it has to follow the rules. So that, some of the rules are here on page 2. Oh, this one was about Kittery. Unique and represent Kittery appropriately and imaginatively. Avoid going over the top in order to be unique. Simple is usually best. Like, some rules. And then it has to be able to be black and white as well as color.
Right.
So there are the more, let's say, technical criteria. But then we might want to add to those. Does this express what the committee, something that gives you something to stand on? Does it express what the committee thinks the process is about? Or
so on that line, is it better to pick a phrase or some words first to give the designer
absolutely.
some guidance?
So some colors, some images, and some phrases, and we would do that brainstorm in here. We would say, let's say, allot the next 10 minutes, which should be enough to just throw out some things and then I'll put them together, and then we can send them to whoever, and then ask them to come up. If it's going to be your son or the exchange student, then we would ask them to come up with 3 alternatives, and then they would, and also alert them that one would be chosen and they would be asked to tweak it.
Right.
That's usually how it works.
Yeah, that's what happened with Littleton's. We had to tweak it.
Right. I mean, you have to, because that person is not here. They're not aware of what we're talking about and why. So it's only fair that they be
So
given
could we
that.
do that at the high school as well? So maybe you choose one, but we're allowed to tweak it.
Oh, you have to be allowed to tweak it. Yeah.
I'm just a little concerned about time.
Yes.
Yeah, we are too.
Well, we are
Yeah.
too, exactly.
Yeah. It's a short period to do something that would be, I think it's a great idea, I really like it, but.
But I think that if the phrase can be agreed on first, we can wait for the design.
Because we can just start using the phrase.
Right.
So.
Because you're right, you don't want to get held up.
Right, and then we're not sending information out because we're waiting for it. Right.
Because
Well, do you want to give that a try? Do you want to give a tagline a try? Just say 5 minutes?
Everybody thinks this is worthwhile.
Yeah.
Okay, so then-
Anyone
so then yes.
disagree with thinking about this a little bit further? Anyone disagree with that?
No.
Okay. So, just anyone?
Can I, just one thing, because I lived next door to Mercer Island for about 17 years.
Huh.
And my mentor professionally was the city manager before he was my mentor. And we had good friends who lived there. And it jumped out at me, a couple of things. It's a community not unlike Westwood. And a little insular, I might just say. The let's talk thing just jumped out at me. And so anyway, I just put that out there. One of the great experiences that I've had of late being, sort of participating in some of these processes, went to the Gay Street Sidewalk meeting the other night, which was lots of good talk, some hard talk, some tough talk, but also the Islington redevelopment. It was tough, but there was talk, and it was value-based, it was opinionated lots of times. And all.
So are you suggesting to give the biggest form of flattery there is and just copy "Let's talk"?
To me, it works fine, but I'm not a.
No. We're just
There
we're
could be other great ideas.
brainstorming. We're brainstorming at the moment. So let's talk.
How about, let's talk about tomorrow?
Let's talk about tomorrow.
Or let's talk about the
It's
future.
not you.
Yeah, I like that.
How about the colors are green and white and black?
Green and white and black.
Yeah.
And why is that?
Westwood is green and white, and black
Sorry,
is
you can
easy to
just,
see.
Oh, okay.
This is just a sample.
So
logo.
the green and white. There you go. So is that the high school colors?
Yes.
Okay.
That's how Littleton did it too.
Yeah,
Same, they
exactly.
we took, oh boy, matching that was so hard. But we did it.
So far, so good. Anybody, let's have some other thoughts,
I
though.
think there are, sorry, I think, I don't know, incorporating some town icons. I feel like the old town pound is maybe overused. It's a little backward thing, or thinking of the past, whereas some iconography is looking a little more forward. I'm not really sure what that is.
Do you have any ideas about what could be a forward-looking icon?
Most of the ones I'm thinking of are more about looking to the past, I'm actually imagining. But give me a minute about that.
Okay.
So I actually like something that actually says like creating our future together, something.
I'm with you. I was just going to say the exact same thing.
Because I think it says it, we're talking, let's talk, but when you say we're creating this, then it's sort of clear that that's what we're doing, so something along those lines.
How about let's have a community conversation? I'm a little worried about like not being able to get the people in the community out that actually could add a lot of value, but they're not hot on a specific topic, like the list that Trevor just had. I'm
Yes.
just really worried that we're going to get those people out
Right.
that are very strong and passionate. That's what tends to happen when you have a public meeting like this. How do we get to those people who actually care and want to participate, but they need to just be kind of shipping out the door to...
So one way definitely is through the branding, and the other is when we talk about how to get the people out, which is our third piece today.
Yeah.
But that's really
I
important.
just don't want, certain topics that are heated to be the dominating
Right.
factor
Right.
of the comprehensive plan.
Well, part of it is the way we will structure the questions that will be kind of, broad enough so that they stimulate thinking that's of a higher level. That's not about a project. It's about values. So
I wanted to say two things. One is I'd love it if we could have a handout for the town meeting that's coming up.
yes,
Right?
we have that in our,
Great.
yeah.
So we do have to move a little quicker.
Yes.
If we want that done.
That's right.
But I was actually thinking, I like alliteration a lot.
Uh-huh.
So I like an idea of the logo, I like Let's Talk below the name of the town, but above that I would put what we want. That's all W's, right? What with the same W, what we want.
What we want, Westwood?
Let's Talk, yeah.
Where's the Westwood go?
Right in the middle.
Oh, I see. Westwood, and then let's talk. So it's 3 lines,
Yeah, or a circle.
or a circle,
W.
or a circle.
You were thinking of a banner, like in front of town hall.
Well, we're also thinking about just
letterhead.
the letterhead.
Letterhead, yeah.
We're thinking about, that would be the most use, right? But then we're thinking about making it larger, on paper, on boards, and if you so choose, it could be printed on T-shirts, it could be printed on refrigerator magnets, it could be a banner. But then there needs to be a budget for that. So first and foremost, we want to make sure that it's at least a letterhead. So that's why it has to be both black and white and color. Yeah.
The
free
green.
t-shirts
You don't need
at the
$100.
vision
We don't need-
That's a good point.
Just, right?
Yeah.
Black and white and green, that's what's doing,
Yeah.
right? I don't know.
I think that's right.
I think, I like the idea of more words and less, the Westwood typeset, there's a font for Westwood that I think we all recognize. It's on every uniform, and, I think we want to make sure to have that, so that very quickly you could see that it's Westwood.
So it's on every uniform at the high school or on town staff as well?
Every soccer coach, every football, every coach
So it
that
says it's
has.
the school.
It's the school.
The school.
Is it on the town website too?
It's paid Trevor.
So I think there's a,
My wife is in charge of the para committee, so we have a lot of this stuff. So.
and I think,
That font, you mean?
Yeah.
I think there's a look.
Yeah.
So there's a Westwood look.
There's a Westwood look that's very easy to see. I think I'd shy away from heavy graphics in the pound or the tree, because we already did a branding, I think, of the town, and I wouldn't want to mix this up with that.
Right, you don't want to do that. You don't
Right.
want this to be
So this
confused
should-
with that.
Right.
But it
So I
could be
like the idea
something.
of words with, colors and graphics, maybe an oval or a circle or something, but not a lot of clutter.
What about the alliteration that Kate was thinking of? But instead of putting it in a circle, just put the big town W. And then say, Westwood, what we want. So all the W's.
So it's
are-
one big W.
One big W with all the rest of the words underneath.
Oh, Westwood,
I like that, I like that.
what we
That's where
want.
he got it.
Ah.
Yeah. You got a job there.
Although I will say the logo for Westwood Day is not the traditional Westwood. It's
No.
it's colorful. It's like a W and it has the zip code in the middle. It's kind of high school girl did do it. It's nice. But I'm just saying, and I'm not saying I agree or disagree, whatever.
You're just
but
giving an example.
I'm just saying, in the last, what long has Westwood Day been around? And like, I think she may have done it like the second year, though, because she's actually a freshman in college right now, so I know who she is. So we did break that trend a little bit to stick with the
And was there
traditional
good
Westwood.
response, do you know?
I think so. They still using it, I think.
I think it's pretty and I like it.
Yeah.
But I'm not sure it suits our purpose because it's not so easy to read either.
Right,
You see
no,
the
it's
zip
not.
code more than you
It's
see
not.
Westwood.
Yeah. Yeah.
But we all know what it is just because we've
Right.
seen it.
And I'm not saying to use it, I'm
Yeah.
just saying that we didn't
Right.
go with the norm.
Green and-
Yeah.
That you do have a
logo.
precedent
Yeah.
of breaking tradition.
Yes.
Right.
Well, we did break tradition there, so.
Right.
Do we have a year in mind for this plan?
So are you thinking 10 or 20 years?
Oh, 10.
No,
10.
year 10.
So what I'm thinking is in that W, we can put the year, our end year for the plan. To focus
Westwood
it. We don't have
2030.
to.
2030?
2030?
2030, W with the 2030 in it.
So where's the 2030? In the W?
In the W.
Yeah, the only problem is you don't know how long it's going to take you to finish this plan.
Right, you don't want to lock it.
2031.
We'll be done by 2030.
Hopefully so. So it's a 9-year plan.
You can change it.
I hope it's before the banners start fading and falling.
When you look at it and say, what on earth is this?
No, we are going to do this.
You've started, you've got it.
So back to the words for a second, and I'm gonna, because I'm not qualified to weigh in on the graphics. I like the Our Town, Our Future, even though it's just there, just because I feel recent decisions in the town may have created some schisms about and how people feel about the process. And this kind of underwrites
It's more
the fact that
unifying.
we're all in together, and that's why I'm a little bit ambivalent about what we want, because I can just see people saying, well, we wanted this and we didn't get it.
Or I want this, I don't know what you want, I know what I
I may
want.
be reading too much into it, so.
Arlington's was a variation. Arlington's was a slight variation on this. Theirs is our town, our plan, our future. Just to throw out another.
Right.
I like the word "our" better than "we." I think "we" says like who's
Because it's
who's we.
unifying, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Whereas our is more inclusive, sense sounding.
What are you saying, our future, our plan, what did you say, Tom?
Our town, our future.
And you can start it with Westwood if you wanted.
Well, the big W and those words written across it.
Wait, can you?
Let's talk about what we want. I'm gonna put a rainbow around it.
This tagline is turning into a paragraph. It is good to have the name of the town though in it. Because if we're thinking about taking away the words Westwood Comprehensive Plan, then keeping Westwood and
In
then
it.
in it is,
Otherwise, people don't know.
what are
is
you
this?
talking about?
Right.
Right.
I like comprehensive plan.
You do,
Because it
because it's
tells
comprehensive.
you what it is.
Yeah, but
That's
I think
'cause
a
you
lot of
know.
people don't know.
That's
They
'cause
have
you
no
know.
idea
What
what
comprehensive
it is.
plan means.
Yeah.
I spoke to the school committee on Tuesday night as part of my duties, and there was one member that did say, what is this comprehensive plan? And maybe my answer wasn't persuasive enough, but he didn't look like he was happy with the answer.
Okay, I have another idea,
Let's hear it.
and I really like it.
What
Okay,
happens?
so we write out the whole word Westwood, and where we would normally have the W with that split that it has now, we also make the E the same, so it's we
Ooh.
in Westwood. And then whatever else you want to add to that.
I have the basic idea. You figure it out.
Anything else?
Well, you realize we're designing the logo and the,
Tagline.
and the slogan at the same time.
Yes.
In other words, we're not leaving anything for this contest.
Oh, no, we are. Because, no,
absolutely.
we are. We would give them some of this, and then they come up with things that we can't even imagine.
Right.
But let's go through what we've said, and tell me if you'd like to eliminate any of this. So there's just plain, Westwood, let's talk. Or maybe it's we Westwood, let's talk. Okay. Then there's let's talk about tomorrow. Then there's creating our future together. I'm going to read them all first, and then I'm going to ask you to choose your top three. Let's have a community conversation. I just want to comment on that one. It's a very complete sentence, and that might be a little clumsy for a tagline. What we want, Westwood, let's talk, in a circle. Then we've got the colors green, white, and black, and we have the Westwood font. Then we have Westwood, what we want, big W. Then we have our town, our future, which people thought was inclusive. And then we have we Westwood, which someone really likes. Now,
Are we trying to come up with one slogan?
No.
now, or series?
we're going to try to give them maybe three.
Three.
So we're going to try to eliminate now, or maybe combine, and then they can sometimes find ways of. Okay, so I'm going to read them again, and raise your hands if you want them included in the three that we're giving. This one is just plain, let's talk. Westwood, let's talk.
I like it.
So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Okay. Let's talk about tomorrow.
Can you vote for more than one?
You could vote for 3. Creating our future together. Let's have a community conversation. What we want, Westwood, let's talk in a circle.
Well, when you say in a circle, then you're
Yeah.
designing the.
Yeah.
the
Okay,
logo.
let's not,
Well,
what
it's
we want, Westwood,
and then
let's talk.
Yeah.
3 lines.
3 lines.
I don't want to waste my last
Well, that's important. We know where that one's going. So, big W, Westwood, what we want.
Yeah,
I like that.
Westwood, what we
I
want.
have 2 votes left,
3,
so.
4, 5.
Westwood, what we want. Yeah.
Okay.
One vote per idea.
And then our town, our future.
Yeah, that's my thing.
And then we Westwood, let's talk.
I'm out.
Still, I'm raising.
No, you do it, you do it. Be assertive, be assertive. Okay, so we have, creating our future together, our town, our future, and let's talk.
Well, what happened to Westwood? What was it?
All those W's.
Westwood, what we want, right.
Well, that one
All
only
those
got 5.
Yeah.
Alliteration didn't win, Steve.
It didn't win. But if you
I
want,
didn't come up with that. I was.
well,
Put it
It
Wondering.
was.
I mean,
it
if
was
you really
growing on
want,
me.
if you feel strongly, we'll just include that. We'll just include that. I mean, no one says it has to be 3. Does anyone disagree with including that?
No, I liked it.
Okay, so we've got our town, our future, Westwood, what we want, creating our future together, and let's talk. Westwood, let's talk. Okay. Any ideas? We have colors. Any other ideas about colors? Do you want to not go with a high school theme, or you think that is most recognizable? Is there any other color that you think might express Westwood?
It's always
Little
green and white.
Wolverine.
A town website, a town website is great.
Show up or else. Right.
Everything's green.
Okay.
Everything's
This is true, very true. So that was pretty easy. Sometimes the color is really hard to find, so that's easy. And then the font, does anyone have any other idea about the font? Should it be something other than what Trevor's
The
doing over
font's
there?
on
I
the
would say that
website.
split is new. So I would say, just, to give the graphic person, it doesn't have to be the split W.
Okay.
But there is a W, there's sort of a font that he'll have seen around town.
Okay.
He can
So
split it
town
if he
font.
wants to graphically, but
Yeah.
that would be relatively new.
You can ask what it is. I forget what it is, but
It's
there's,
a classic font.
Yeah,
It's something
Yeah,
that
we should find out what it
people
is.
know what it is.
Yep.
Yeah, it's something,
Yeah.
lots of.
Looks like Times New Roman.
Does it really?
Yeah.
Right out
That's
of the
pretty
box.
simple.
Times New Roman. And are there any images, we said not the pound, I guess, that are iconic or that symbolize the future for you or that express something? It doesn't have to be Westwood, it could just be something about the future that, you think is compelling. Starbucks. They already have their logo, and it's
Excuse me,
green.
Dunkies.
And it's green.
Exit 16B.
That's the first jump to my mind.
109 West.
129.
109 West, right.
Yeah, what was 128?
Wait a minute, I'm 14.
That's going to create trouble right there.
And you don't look a day over 13.
Actually, the image that shows up for me is the library with the Colburn School next to it. It's sort of the old, the brand new, that, it's right in the center of town.
Is this font the one that you're talking about? On
Yes.
the heading
That's
for
the
the
one.
Westwood newsletter?
Yeah, I think
Is
that's
that it?
right.
Okay,
Do you think that's Times New Roman?
it's in that family.
Yeah.
What about an arrow?
I think it actually is.
graphic? An arrow pointing forward.
Mhm. And that can take many forms, and a graphic designer can
Yes.
work with that.
Yeah, I think
I think having the words Westwood Comprehensive Plan
Mm-hmm.
as you could
Like
have
a subtitle.
You could have an arrow,
Yes.
and then in
Yeah.
the arrow, you could write it, and so I would give that as a
That's nice, yeah.
positive addition,
Mm.
if the graphic person could.
So in
See
the
the-
arrow, in the thickness of the arrow.
In the arrow,
Or
it could be,
underneath it.
it could be that they design a line at the bottom, you could put it in the line. There are a variety of things they could do that, if they got the words in, that would be a plus.
Yeah, it could be an arch over the top.
Correct, right.
Or an arch over the top.
Yeah.
Whatever, yeah.
Yeah, whatever the design is.
Right. So I just wanted to get the thing about the library and the old school. So it was really about combining the new and the old, really,
Yeah,
right?
exactly.
There's something about people I think associate with us is there's sort of a two-town center notion about our town.
Mm.
And they kind of exist on two parallel streets, which are separated by several miles, and if there's some kind of there's a linear relationship to them, which could be arrows, it could be rivers, it could be streets.
Good point.
Train line.
The shape of the town, the big difference.
And that's quite distinctive.
Yeah, yeah. And I think you'll learn that there's a
divide.
There's a divide, yeah, it's very.
So we'll make sure we have the our or the we.
You want to put Sling Town
I
on
do
there?
not.
Is it towns too?
Yeah.
I always think of Westwood as being a lot of open space and with Hale Reservation and
Yeah.
so on, or a nature theme to me would be.
The only thing about doing that, and that was the thing in the Kittery one, some people felt that it was pushing the natural resources too much for the
Oh, I
people
see what
who,
you're
for
saying, yeah.
example, were interested in more commercial development or more affordable housing. They felt like that was pushing. I'm just stating that I'm not necessarily agreeing with it,
No, that's good.
that it can be seen that way. So how about if we write this up, send it out to you, you take a look, and then we send it off now where? Where are we sending it? The time issue, when is town meeting?
May 6th.
Oh,
Yeah.
Plenty of time.
Plenty of
Right.
time for a tree.
I mean, so I really like the idea of using the schools, but there's another way of involving the schools. And maybe in this case, since we have such short time, we go straight to the source. And we
Sorry,
get,
can I just say next week is school vacation?
Yeah, I know.
that just
So-
immediately
Yeah, that
makes
kills
us
it,
in,
right.
yeah, okay. So the thing is, we very often have involved the schools in visioning. And what we'll do is, we will ask one of you, or maybe you can, pair up, to be liaisons to the school and actually have a session there. We can support you, we can provide the materials, repeat the same questions, but get the teen voice. And so that's one way, and sometimes you can pair up with teachers, like go through the superintendent, through the principal. The high school is usually, where people go most, but we've done it at all levels. And if the teachers are involved, they can actually connect it to their curriculum, whether it be civics, art, statistics. They can poll their co-students. The only problem is the timing. So if it's a time where there's MCAS or final exams, so that we got to be careful about not making teachers feel as though we're increasing their workload.
Right.
So we can talk about how to involve the students, because we happen to think it's really important to do that. It's a teaching opportunity. It's also, you get some really interesting ideas. Plus, you get the attention of the parents. So it's a win-win. So if you don't mind doing it, going directly to the graphic designer.
I'll see if we can do it this weekend.
Oh, wow. Won't that be great?
I want to be part of that conversation.
Okay, so then let's go on to, so one way of attracting attention is by branding. The other is by making sure that it's a welcoming, attractive, and yes, enjoyable event, and that we express that. So first of all, we have a space, right? Which is the
Thurston Middle School, the cafeteria. We did reserve that space.
Now, we started at our mini meeting, to talk about a time that we thought would work, as like a capture space, right, between things, because Saturdays, it's always difficult. If you do it on a weeknight, you lose some people. You do it on a Saturday, you lose other people. It's just so difficult. So we were thinking maybe mid-morning and kind of have a little bit over lunch, so that then we have some food, and that people can get some things done in the morning and then also have their afternoon. What do you think about that? And what do you think is it, for example, respond to 10:30, is that a good time?
I think I think it's going to be difficult with sports.
Yeah. That's the big problem with Saturdays.
I think, starting it a little later and running into the afternoon is a better idea, just because.
And that was the thinking. So is 10:30, or do you think?
It's still a little too early, 10:30.
So 11?
11 or 11.
So I also just want to throw out, it's the day after the prom.
Oh.
So if anybody has any children to pick up or
Yeah.
take wherever, it's just, I feel like later might be.
Yeah, later would be better.
So then we can actually think about having a full lunch.
So like noontime start?
What do you think?
You might get more of the morning sports parents
Yeah.
to be available. I feel like, I don't know, I'm an early entrant to the sports world, my oldest son being 8, but the mornings are like the high pressure time.
Yeah.
Well, we could think about if we have it at noon, and we could have people eating while we're presenting the PowerPoint.
Right.
That would be good.
And so they can, so let's say noon. And 2 hours is really, we could do it in 2 hours if we just keep to the time. And then people still feel like they have an afternoon, it's not gone. So then food is really important, even if it wasn't noon, but now it's even more important. So what do you think about food? Do you have the go-to places that donate or you buy from?
Roach Brothers.
Yeah, we get
Mellows.
sandwich, and like little
wraps and
sandwiches or
stuff.
something.
Yeah,
We've had
it-
good luck at Costco. Costco.
They have platters, right?
Yeah, they have
platters,
platters.
like every kind of sandwich you could possibly want.
Yeah.
And they have those wraps.
Yeah.
Those
Yeah,
Thai
wraps.
chicken ones are really good.
Would Camellas consider
Yeah, Camilla's probably
donating? It is a Westwood
Isn't that hot food for the most
Yeah.
part? Or?
pizza.
Yeah.
So the thing is, we want to be careful not
Pizza
too many
salad.
sauces,
Well,
We've had
Wegmans-
that experience where it's like,
Wegmans is, I think they'd be interested.
And I think Roach Brothers definitely would be. Roach's is
Yeah, we-
usually very good.
We get a competition going between roaches and.
you could say
Wegmans
one,
is
yeah,
really-
Make sure there's a gluten-free option.
and make sure there's a vegan option
Yeah,
too.
you're going to have to think about
Yeah.
gluten-free.
Okay.
Just it's
Yeah,
become the
I
way
was
we do meetings
thinking
now.
sandwiches because they're cold. So pizza I thought too,
Yeah.
but then if you don't eat it
Gets
right
cold.
away, it'll get.
It
Yeah.
takes up a lot of space, that's.
And it can be messy too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So definitely to think about.
Okay.
The other thing is that we found that holding a raffle can be really fun, and also it makes it so that it's not just a meeting. You know, you put it on the flyer and people are automatically eligible to win it, and it's free. And we found that in the poorest communities and the wealthiest communities, everybody seems to love it. It's not like a, you know, I want to win that thing because I need that. It's just a fun thing. So there are two options, well, actually three. One, in some communities, people on the steering committee have actually made things, but I feel like that's a tall order. Then the other two options are, one, if the town has things, like do you have a book that is the hiking trails, or a history book, or something that you normally sell that then you would give away? Or like a pass to a recreational center,
I'm
or
looking at Nora.
parking.
Westwood Day t-shirt.
Yeah, t-shirts, there you go.
Family membership at Hale Reservation, maybe?
Yeah, exactly, something like
That would be
that.
nice.
Yeah, that would be really good. Would they donate?
Maybe also lunch with Steve Olenoff.
There you go. So things that are town related, any parking, recreational.
Gift cards to the retailers.
Well, that's the other one, there's the private sector. So one is the town, and then the other is gift certificates
Yeah.
to restaurants, shops.
Maybe, could the rec department maybe donate some classes or something, like
Mm.
something like that?
Let's see.
Or how about a pool membership or gym membership?
Yeah.
Yes, that's good. And then gift certificates for restaurants and shops.
I mean, one, if we say, and one idea is to make Rochi's and Michael's compete for the lunch opportunity, but we could ask whoever we don't use, ask the other one,
Yeah.
they can choose like a.
And tell them that the other one is donating already.
Yeah, there you go. A gift basket, you know, whatever.
Yeah.
Wine, cheese, fruit,
Mhm.
you know, all that kind of good stuff. But-
Mhm.
And they can put their name all over it, it's fine.
Oh, no, they will, that's one
Battle of the
thing.
supermarkets.
We promise them that they can put their name all over it.
Oh, yeah.
We will have a sign thanking them, and that's part of what they get in return.
Right.
Right.
Is that they get our support.
Having fun.
Maybe too, the Ponce Valley Chamber of Commerce, if anybody's a member there, they might have stuff to give.
That's a good idea.
If we only have 2 hours, people are going to be sitting and eating and not paying attention to what they're doing if they're fed, I think.
Well, we'd have them
Sorry.
eat while we're doing the PowerPoint. Then the food is off in the corner, and then they're seated at their tables.
Good.
Because we do want their attention, you're right. And we don't want them talking with their mouth full.
What
So-
about dessert?
So we could have dessert, and we could have
I
it.
think people love dessert.
It's true, they do.
And coffee.
Yeah, and definitely coffee at that time of day.
Yeah.
So what we could
Especially for
do,
the consulting team.
yeah, exactly. What we could do is then when they're at their tables, after an hour passes, we could come around and bring the dessert, just sustenance to keep them going. So, okay, dessert and coffee.
If you stay for an hour and a half, you get dessert.
And if you stay for the full 2 hours, you get to be part of the raffle.
Right.
You have to be present to win. That's part of the whole deal. So then another option is to think about childcare. So oftentimes, one of the demographics that's difficult to reach are young families with young children. So if we could find teenagers from the high school or Girl Scouts, exactly, or sometimes there's a babysitting club that can, or they're looking for, they could be Boy Scouts too, we've had that. They're looking for their community service credits.
Yeah.
So we don't need all that many, and then they're amazingly good at corralling, but we need to make sure we decide on what age and above. Usually it's 5, unless we know that we have a lot and then we have experienced people. Sometimes we've had teachers In that case, then it can be much younger. But usually it's 5 just because it's a little bit tricky. But, we can see who we get. And then we have to have a child release form because the town can't be responsible, right? So we have a form and the parents will sign that. And then we'll do a little training with these child care providers so that the children will also have an opportunity to participate. It won't just be blocks and, drawing.
They actually do an activity
That's related
is brought
to
into the
visioning.
meeting. Yeah, it's lovely.
So
Really good.
So what do you think about having childcare? And because one of the things we're talking about now is attracting people to the meeting, so that would be on the flyer, you see. That's why we have to decide now.
What's the facility where this meeting will be held?
It's at the middle school.
Okay.
So presumably, we could have a classroom space nearby.
The gym is right.
And the gym, yeah.
See if the gym's
right.
I don't know if somebody's using
I'll
the gym or
check.
So
not.
I do know a mom who's a troop leader for younger kids who won't be hungover from the prom.
There you go.
So
That's
I'm happy
important.
to ask her if her troop might be willing to do that.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay, that'd be great.
That would be great.
That'd be super.
Can I ask a little kind of lateral question? How many people do you expect, would you guys expect to show up, given that you've done this before? You've seen this
So
community
this is a question that we always get.
Everybody
And
asks.
so what we asked in our mini meeting last week was how many people attended other public sessions but that were very focused on one thing, right? So based on that, I would say we should design to 100 and hope to get that, but probably won't. But we don't want to be under,
That's right.
right? So I would say let's design to 100.
No, I'm just totally curious. I've seen
Yeah,
all-
when we
all
used to
of
get
them.
75, 80, right? Visioning.
I'm not sure about that.
Okay.
And part of
I
it
think
will
it's hard to
depend
say
on
this week.
the outreach that you do,
Right.
which is the thing we want to get to, so.
Are we gonna have to worry about parking?
Hmm.
Thurston with, I assume, my kids are older now, but Thurston, you've got every soccer field, you got all the sports, Thurston fills up. Is it, the only place you're gonna have open is sort of going down the hill, right?
But if it's at noon, won't they be leaving as you're arriving?
I think it runs,
I still think
Just
it
put
is.
a note in the,
what's that?
they can use the church parking lot.
I was just gonna say St. Margaret Mary's,
Because it
maybe.
overflows, not that far, and I think just making it aware.
I just think we should,
That's a good point.
we should prepare for it, though. I mean,
Mhm.
now you need a person to direct parking, right?
Or could we get the high school? Like, was it just not available? Like, if we could do it at the high school, that would be better.
Well, it's
I thought-
online graduation, oh, no, not online graduation, the prom,
Yeah.
right? It's not, they didn't have, yeah, so the prom is not anything to do with the high
Was
school.
it better? I thought Thurston Cafeteria was a better setup than the
Yeah, we
cafeteria.
had it last time,
Uh-huh.
maybe if we had it in one of these new cool spaces, the library, how many people have been in the, I know people go to the
Yeah,
library.
it's not
It's a
that
small
many people,
meeting room.
yeah.
And
I
also,
think
can we
it's
have
really
food
good
and
for
kind of
people,
stuff.
yeah.
When we had the open space and recreation plan, how many people do we have?
I think we had about 60, 65 people.
And it was during the day?
It was on a Thursday night.
Oh, Thursday night, yeah.
And there was plenty of room for that group.
Yeah, we had plenty of space. Yeah.
We just have had better success with a Saturday meeting, is that why we're doing it Saturday instead of the evening? I know there's never a great day.
The one we had for the original 2000 plan, we had on a Saturday, and it was very successful.
Yeah. I don't know if there were 100 people there, though.
No, there weren't.
But this group is going to do a better job at doing
Yeah.
There
outreach.
you go.
Yeah.
With
I'll go to
electronics, yeah.
community meetings.
Plus, we're
That's
branding,
true, we have
right?
better communication then.
So,
Monday to Friday or Tuesday to Thursday.
do we want to explore another location or no?
Sorry, Abby.
I don't know.
No,
If we
Good
think,
points,
is
but
there
just-
a better location? Like-
I think we ought to stick with this
Good.
because
Yeah.
we have overflow parking arrangements.
Oh, we do.
Yeah,
And you never know what the
Steve's gonna
parking is
drive
going to
everybody.
be.
well,
Across the street.
well, the senior center's not far, the high school
Right.
and the church, we could contact the church about overflow, and then
And
all of
people
us
park on the
should
street.
Park.
Park there.
park
And
at
also, we
those-
could write that on the flyer,
Mhm.
right?
Yeah, I
So-
would put that on the flyer, because it could be, I just know from 10 years ago, soccer, it's a zoo in a changeover time. It's a zoo in
I bet
Thurston.
it is, yeah.
And quite frankly, you really don't want to go to Thurston, and people might get frustrated and just go forget it.
Mm.
I
So
think
we'll
you
put that
wanna-
on the flyer.
You just want to be prepared, I think,
Yeah,
that's all,
no, it's a
right?
good point. The other thing that's related to that is we talked about, and Abby's working on this, is providing transportation, especially to seniors who may not otherwise be able to make it. So the Council on Aging,
Yep,
Abby,
they
you
have
want
a
to give us
bus,
an update?
the Council on Aging, so they're trying to find us a driver to at least provide transportation to and from the event. So they're.
And so we would put that on the flyer, and they would have to probably give 24-hour notice. They would have to,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And and we need a phone number
Okay.
for
So
who
what
they
kind
should
of
call
driver do you
24
need?
hours in advance.
Excuse me, I'm sorry. What kind of driver? Does that have to be someone with their CDL or something?
They have drivers that they use. They don't typically operate on a Saturday, so they're, I think, going to reach out to their drivers to see if they're available for a Saturday.
Can I add one other piece to the logistics? I wonder if we say that, to help with that parking issue, if we say that lunch is available at 11:30, but we start at noon, that way people can kind of get there a little bit early and.
It's a great idea. That's a really good idea.
Lunch at 11:30.
But that means we need to have a little extra, because then there'll be people tempted to have more. Do you know what I mean? When others are coming at 12.
We did that with a meeting recently. Started the food earlier and actually kicked off the meeting about 15 minutes after the official start time.
You'll want good, you'll want good signage, you want to open the door maybe on the other side, on the side facing down the hill,
Yeah.
right? Just some of those logistics will help.
Yeah, definitely. So, we're still on how to get people there. One other thing we were thinking about, so in the 2000, just plain 2000 plan, Phil Hare had an inventory of special places. So, where is that? I have the definition written down. So it's kind of an interesting, it's not, our question of what makes Westwood unique. It's more specific. It's more about what are iconic places. So here's what the definition of a special place is in the 2000 plan. Identify those places in town that define Westwood as a unique and special place. These could include outstanding views or landscapes, sites or buildings of historic value, or essential places in the community's life. These are places that give form to the residents' internal images of community, are identified with cherished rituals, or contribute subconsciously to everyday life. So what if we put out a call for people building up to the forum to take a selfie at their favorite special place that we would give the definition of, and then they would have to caption it with no more than, I don't know, we'll decide how many words, and then there's a contest. And the steering committee, we have to figure out what the criteria are. The steering committee decides, and of course the winner is announced at the meeting. So it's a way of building up, and also the steering committee can do it too, right? So you can start the ball rolling by taking selfies in what you consider to be a place that fulfills this definition, and caption it. Why? Why is it a special place?
Scroll them across the town website.
Yes.
There's Linda Wall.
Yeah.
From Starbucks.
Again. So what do you think of that?
I like it.
Simple.
And you have a Facebook page, Planning Department, so we're all set with that.
Yep.
You just have to make sure that somebody's looking
Check
over
it,
the
okay.
shoulder so that
Yeah.
no one takes advantage and,
So one of the
Yeah, it
things,
gets nasty.
I like the idea of people like somehow having displays or bringing something that's special, but that could be a number of things. It could be a painting, it could be a
Yes.
drawing. I don't necessarily think we have to have a winner. I really think that
okay.
this is kind of like, everyone's here, everyone's participating, everyone's showing something that's special to them. But I think a winner takes away from the.
because it makes it, then it makes it some are less than, yeah. Mhm.
So that's
I think
just
that's a very good point.
Well, it is a good point, and it gets at, too,
Yeah.
I think, at that issue of, there are a lot of things about this community that are strengths.
Exactly.
And so when you allow the collective expression of that, you're really sending that, again, positive message that you're going to need to build on.
And you're also sharing, right? If you're a special place, I don't know about it, and now I
Right.
learn from you, and,
Right.
you know.
Right.
So I think that was a very good
And
point.
they could be projected too, right? I mean,
Oh, yes,
yeah,
absolutely.
because they're all coming digital.
Exactly. So, but I also
Your
liked,
local newspaper may want to run some.
I also liked your
Surprise.
idea, Sheila,
Yes.
of that people could also be asked to bring something, right? Because it's not, we were just talking now about more of a social media thing about, you know, a selfie on a Facebook page, but you said something, you broadened it and said also it could be,
It could be drawings. I know Hale Reservation has had painting and photograph exhibits. Definitely. I mean, there's a number of different people that we could, you know.
It could be a service too, like even just that the driver for the, you know, something that the town is doing for people, that we're gonna drive people to this session.
Mhm.
It's different.
so the van could be that, right?
Right.
The van.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, if that would fall under this definition.
And these would just be displayed there.
They would be on Facebook, right? So they'd
Oh,
be
okay.
building up. They'd be building up to, so it'd be calling attention to the fact that this is coming, and then they would be displayed. And maybe they'd be displayed on the town website. Maybe other places, we'd have to think about it, right?
Judy's, and particularly our newspaper, would print them
Yeah.
because
Ooh.
they're always looking for something like that.
Maybe they could do like an insert,
Yeah.
right?
There's no sports, there's no paper.
Okay. So we'd have to think more about the idea of bringing and how we would describe that.
So you're suggesting, though, that the definition that Phil used is good?
So I think that that's a very nice definition, but I also like the idea of mirroring, right? Saying, let's see what they said then, and now let's
Yeah.
see what it is
Yeah,
today.
that's
Right.
true.
Yeah.
What remains the same, what has changed. So I kind of like to be able to compare.
Wish we had those pictures. Do we, Nora?
I don't know where we have them. It was early enough that it's not on our computer, it's on a floppy drive.
Definitely
No.
not.
We have all of Judith Chiardi paintings,
Yeah.
you know, prints of those, which if just wanted to highlight different parts of the town, you could display the prints.
That's nice. Whose prints are these?
Judith Chiardi,
Could you spell that?
yeah, Ciardi, and she's a Westwood artist who donated all of these paintings to the town. And we're in the process of getting prints made, but if you just wanted to say, you know, here's a, you know, a preview, I think we probably have 20 prints that we could display.
Right.
And you could photograph the others maybe. So then that would be one more thing to do. So now, if you don't mind, let's turn to how are we gonna let people know this is happening?
Yes.
Who's gonna let them know it's happening? So let's just started developing an engagement plan based on our conversation last week. So first we want to think about, because you are inviting these people, I mean, you are going to be doing the bulk of the outreach, so the planning department as well, but the steering committee that's one of your key roles, right? So you need to feel comfortable that you understand why we're doing this, that you think it's important, and that you like the idea, that you like what we're doing, and that you like why we're doing it. So let's just take a minute and think about why we're doing this, right? So what are some goals for a process such as this? So one is very concrete, to come up with a vision and a set of goals for the future. That's how you develop an action plan. It's the first step. So you can't do that unless you take the first step. Then it's a preliminary identification of issues. So what are some key issues? What are some key challenges? What are some key opportunities for the future? How can we be proactive and not be just reactive? Community building. It's an opportunity to bring people together who don't necessarily come together and feel good about living here and feel good about being asked their opinion about how things could be better or how things could remain the same and how to do that. It's about improving communications and relationships amongst the town and the residents and between residents. And in this day and age of virtual communication and virtual communities, people are craving that more and more. Actual face-to-face. Let's talk, let's communicate, let's understand one another. And then it's coming up with a shared understanding of desires and concerns so that, you know, if you only talk about the sidewalk project, you don't really understand what your desires and concerns are. You understand what you, Abby, feel about that particular project. But what about in general? What do you really care about? What do you want for your future? And it's also trying to kind of garner enthusiasm and support for when this plan is finished. People need to understand that when you go to town meeting for a particular project or particular funding, that it's related to this vision and the set of goals that people participated in and agreed upon. So these incremental pieces later are all going to tie into this. So this is really important that we get as many points of view, and we usually don't try to go for numbers, but numbers are good too, of people attending. But we want to get broad swaths and cross-section of the community so that when the time comes for you to implement, the support is there because people understand it, they participated in it, they contributed to it. So that's support and momentum for action, right? So I hope that, you know, you feel, I mean, the fact that you're on the committee is kind of an indication that you feel this is important. But I hope that you feel that what you're doing is actually a real contribution to your town. It's really important, and it's, you know, people get very tied up. I mean, we all now live so fast-paced, and it's all about right now, this fire burning, and tomorrow. But we're talking about day after tomorrow and the day after that. So it's hard to lift people's eyes to look further ahead, and that's what we're here to do. Because a lot of what we're talking about is longer term. But we have to start doing it now if it's ever going to happen. So we want to think about who the target audiences are. You know, their residents, their business owners, community organizations, leaders, town staff, youth, institutions, people with diverse backgrounds, people who don't usually participate. We want to think about all those people and how can we talk to them, to invite them, and to convince them that it's worth their while. So who would you say are the harder to reach populations? We know who, usually in every town, they're the ones who, no matter what you do, they'll just show up, right? You know them by first name.
You're looking at them.
There we go.
Worker bees.
Can we give people an opportunity to participate without showing up by writing something down, posting it somewhere, replying to an email?
Absolutely.
As we talk to people in town who we know aren't going to show up.
So what we try to do
we
usually
do
is
that.
after the forum, because then there'll be a buzz, hopefully, and people will say, oh, you missed it, it was great. You know, it was better than I thought it was going to be. Wish you'd been there.
Good food.
Yeah, good food. I won the raffle.
Selfies at the meeting.
Selfies at the meeting, exactly. So then we would suggest that you take the same questions and make comment boards and put them, say, in the library, in the town hall, and people can respond with Post-it notes. It's not the same, right? It's not the same. It shouldn't be treated equally because when I hear what you say, it broadens my thinking. And when you hear what I say, you might say, oh, well, I agree with that. It's just not my priority.
Right. The
But,
conversation.
you know, the conversation changes, and it's just, I mean, that's what makes us human, really. But it's an opportunity for people to provide their input and to see other people's, because when it's written up there, they can also browse.
This is after.
After.
If before they provided some input that we could then, at the meeting, read and include in the conversation, you don't think there's value in that? Because we are having, these thoughts are tied together. April 30th, we have the election. May 6th, we have town meeting. May 18th, we're getting together. So April 30th, at where people are going to vote, there could be a piece of paper while they're waiting in line, or, oh, comprehensive plan, your thoughts, or, I don't know, just, that might be stupid. But
well, maybe what we
the
do is,
chance for those
no,
who
it's
wouldn't
not
show up.
stupid at all. What we might do is maybe just take one of the questions, right? Like, what makes Westwood unique? or, you know,
What do you
tell
love
them.
about Westwood?
Yeah, or tell them, you know, about the selfie idea, or, you know, give them one thing. Because I think to give them all the questions
you can't do that.
beforehand,
No,
it's
no
not,
questions,
yeah.
just, yes, one thing, yes, I
Right.
agree, not like, take this survey and
Right.
give us all your thoughts.
Right, right.
I might
So-
be
Give a
afraid
chance.
that
We're meeting
if,
on this day, if you can't make it, do you have thoughts about
Right.
Westwood?
Well, we already had the survey.
Right.
I think this
But
will,
do we have to-
this is going to be on the Westwood Media Center.
Yeah,
And I think they should periodically put on the screen, so you want, because you want the people to see this and then respond to what they see.
right.
So you want to periodically have them show, you know, to add your response, go to a website or the Facebook page where they can add it.
But what you were concerned about something.
yeah, I'm concerned that if a person, whether they be on April 30th or the 6th, provided their input, they might do that instead of coming.
Well, that's why we usually do it afterwards.
I think that their input is important,
Good point.
but I think it's after. I think that that's the ideal opportunity to promote come back for this because it's so important. And maybe advertise the fun things.
Advertise the fun things, right.
I agree, you don't want to miss them, and you might miss them because they're not available, but couldn't we get them afterwards,
Right.
perhaps?
Maybe even take it, you know, if they say, oh, I can't make it, take down their contact info. And maybe give them the one thing to do.
Yeah, I think you don't want just to solicit comments because they don't know
Right.
anything about what happened.
out of context.
So
It's
you
out of
want to
context.
completely do it through the Westwood Media Center rebroadcast of it. And anything around town, you should be getting any notices, you know, if you missed the visiting center
Exactly.
session, watch it on TV.
Watch
And
it
then
and then,
provide, you
and
also
then
can respond.
Right.
You can respond, or you can go to the comment boards if you want to write. So who are these hard-to-reach populations? Who are the hard-to-reach populations in your town? Are they families
I
with small
think they're
children?
families with children.
Okay. Seniors who stay at home, or single seniors?
I don't know, I think they might come
Those
out.
are pretty good.
Yeah,
Okay.
seniors are good.
People, do you have people without internet access in Westwood?
Does that exist?
really.
Probably.
Does that exist at all?
Those would be the seniors.
Some communities, it's geographic. I mean, they just don't, they have no broadband.
I wonder about new residents.
New residents. Yeah.
I'd also like to get the youth involved in some significant way, because they're the ones that can kind of identify, I wish
Yeah.
that we had this, or
Yeah.
this is missing, or something that
Yeah.
just provides a voice and,
So we've tried to invite, say, through the schools, youth to come to a visioning session, and it hasn't really worked out. What seems to work better is to actually go to the schools.
Right.
So
Those are fun.
as we suggested, maybe after this session, we can help you to do that.
I'm also thinking like, there are some church youth groups.
Mhm.
Those might be
Yeah,
outreach to them even prior to,
right.
you know, the visioning center, that could, you know, just to have some representation. I think
Mhm.
it's very,
And
and
if-
there's a buzz that they can create.
Right.
too, Right, so,
And if we get enough, then we usually give them their own table,
yeah.
and then they can, you know, if they're not enough, then we'll spread them around, because then they feel awkward, you know?
With their parents and stuff.
Right, exactly.
Maybe reach out to some of the coaches of the hockey team, the lacrosse team, the soccer team, because they've got a lot of contacts with the families, and encourage them
Renters.
To
reach out.
encourage.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Renters are a hard to reach population.
yes. Do you have many here?
What are used to?
More than you used to.
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, they would have to be targeted, because they probably don't participate.
Right.
Well, they often don't feel welcome.
Right.
You probably don't have many limited English speakers, low-income households. Well, families with private school children are often harder to connect with.
That's interesting, yeah. But through the sports, if they're in private school, they often will
Right.
participate in Westwood sports.
Right.
Yeah.
So I think you're right, that we've got to reach
Go
out
through
to
the
all the
coaches.
coaches.
Don't you guys subsidize housing inventory percent?
We're just over 10%.
So they're a lower moderate
So
income
there are,
people
yeah.
here.
So those are usually also a population that's harder to reach, harder to involve, harder to make them feel like you really
They-
mean them.
Right, exactly. It's the feeling like I belong.
Yeah.
What day is Westwood Day?
It's the
September.
end of September?
Because I was going to ask you that too.
Yeah.
Because sometimes it's in the spring.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No.
So, okay, we talked about that. So what has worked well in the past, in your experience? So you've all been, I assume,
September
in
21st.
town. What's that?
Westwood Day is September
Oh,
21st.
September 31st?
21st.
21st.
September doesn't have.
Oh, yeah. So it couldn't be. So what's worked well in the past in terms of attracting people to a meeting or keeping them there?
Aside from the crisis.
Right, because we talked about the
about
Islington
it.
Center, the housing plan, the open space plan at our mini meeting. Any other experiences or anything you could think of that was, a particular media that was used or something that was done that caused people to come
Usually
out?
something controversial that somebody doesn't want in their
Yeah.
backyard, right? Then they show up.
Change.
It's usually a group, for me, it's a group email. Somebody sends it to all their
Group
Westwood
emails.
friends and says,
Mhm.
school vote's coming up, everyone gets to town meeting, and that drives attendance, I think.
Well, there is Facebook, there's the
Facebook.
What about lawn signs?
Neighbors in Action.
Ooh, lawn signs. I don't know if you can use lawn signs
No,
for
we
this.
have the sandwich boards.
Yeah.
Several locations.
Yeah, it's a great idea.
And lawn
Sandwich
signs.
board.
Yeah.
I mean, lawn signs too,
Like
if
on your private
you
property.
put them all
Yeah, put 'em
on
on private.
our
Private
houses.
property, yeah. There you go, steering committee. Have a little thing.
Well, no, I'm not saying identify that, but
No, no,
I
no,
would
I know.
certainly put
I'm
one on my
kidding.
lawn.
I'm kidding, right. I don't mind. There you go.
I'll take down my sign.
Obviously, town meeting is prior, so
Right.
a notice there would reach
Right.
however many people.
Well, we're trying to get the flyer done before that, and we need to get the branding done before the flyer, so it's all
Right.
kind of, and to also make sure that we know that we're providing childcare, transportation, the raffle, all of that before we commit to it on the flyer. So,
Maybe just a collection of things. I don't think that's ever been done anywhere else before. All of those things that you just talked about. So maybe people will go, what is this?
See it
good,
somewhere.
good.
I
So-
like robocalls. I think they're very effective.
Do you have a reverse 911?
We do, whether or not they'll let us use it.
Yeah, that was my next question.
Some towns won't let you. I
Right,
know.
exactly.
I went into that.
I mean, they use it when there's an election coming up and things like that. I don't know what the protocol
Yeah,
is.
what is
I
the-
mean,
what
you'd
is
have to
the
ask. I
criteria?
don't know what it is to do it for one and not another, but I always find them to be the most
I thought you were just
effective.
going to lead us in a yoga pose.
Yeah.
Sorry, I just can't sit
No. That actually happened once in a meeting. Somebody did, yes. In Amherst, yeah. He stood up and he said, okay, I'm going to have to do yoga. Does anyone want to join? And nobody else did, but he just went on anyway. Anyway, sorry, just reminded me of that.
Yoga at the old visioning session.
So does anybody have any concerns about the process, about maybe missing populations? Any concerns about what could happen, what could go wrong? Any concerns about the process, about doing outreach, about maybe not getting to people that we need to get to?
Not so much that, but I mean, I'm just thinking of this for myself of who are the groups I can reach out to tonight and send them something casual, even a casual.
Yeah, save the
communique.
date.
And there's all my kids' sports teams, all my kids, parent groups at school. I would just wonder, do each of us, or can we comfortably have every single elementary school sent home a flyer with every single kid,
Mhm.
type of thing. And how do we orchestrate that?
Do the
So
schools
that's,
allow that?
some schools don't allow that
Yeah.
anymore, so you have to,
So-
but you know what, the ones that don't allow that anymore, the flyer in the backpack,
Yeah.
they do tend to allow it on their,
Newsletters.
on their newsletters,
Sure.
their electronic.
We
So
have a
that would be
bulletin,
something.
we have a school bulletin.
Yeah,
that
so
comes
then you
out,
would need to check with that.
And anybody can.
But before we get to the how, so are there any concerns you have about, like, there may be some populations that you think will just never get them?
Well, we do have some senior housing that is kind of self-contained in their environment,
Yeah.
and they probably won't come, but that's, we've got several in town.
Yeah.
I mean, I think just the old-fashioned way, putting them like in the senior housing, in the banks, in the post office, that stuff. That's taxing the library and go around and post them up.
So then why don't we start with what we're to do? So we'll start with the digital. So website,
Yep, town website.
town website. Is there a town webmaster?
We each do our own, so I do.
So it's you?
Planning department.
Yeah.
Okay, so it's Abby. Email blasts. So are there master lists, I assume the town has, right?
I've, with the survey that's gone out, we did ask people as an option to provide their email address.
So survey.
The survey's open for one more week, and so far we have 700 people have responded, and we have 350 people that entered their emails.
Oh.
We haven't gone through them, we don't know if they're valid email addresses, but I see that 350 people did enter their addresses, so.
So that's one list.
Yep, so we have 350 people who signed up to receive information about the comprehensive plan. We do also have the Westwood Wire is
That's
our
right.
primary email notification subscription that we send out.
When's the next one go? 'Cause it's
We
like
can
2
send
months.
them, it's usually about once a month, but we can send them earlier. So we did send one a couple days ago with the survey out. So we did get 200 people respond from that in the last couple days.
What about if we can get churches to put it in their bulletins?
Mm-hmm. I have a list of the houses of worship, but also somewhere I read that there's an interfaith council in Westwood that's very
That's pretty,
active.
there is, but it hasn't been doing much lately.
Oh, not
so-
lately, huh?
Yeah.
Okay. So
I
should we
think
talk,
that
should we cross them
individual-
off?
Yeah, I don't think they really,
Okay.
I don't think they've even met. for
Somewhere I read they were
over a year or
active.
so.
So then, you want to also think about setting up information hubs, not necessarily for right now, but you want to be setting up systems for your process that we assume will last 12 to 18 months. So you want to get people used to the idea that if they want to know what you're doing or what you're up to or what you've decided, that they know where to go. So one is the digital option on the website, but maybe in the library there's a certain location that could be an information hub so that people feel like, they just want to stay abreast of the process. And, once you have, say, the inventory complete, you could have that there in hard copy, people can check in. So you want them used to kind of these systems of communication.
Okay.
Can we do anything too with Westwood Media Center?
Yes, we can.
So that's next on the list.
Okay.
So one of the things that we were thinking, okay, first of all, that the visioning session itself will be televised, right?
Yes.
Then updates and announcements on boards and commissions, and if they're starting a meeting.
Yes, we can do that.
And maybe, do you have, what do you call that? That scrolls at the bottom?
The feed.
Oh, yeah.
What is it called?
A ticker.
Ticker.
Oh, yeah, okay.
So maybe, 2 weeks ahead of time, you can get that space
Okay.
on that.
Okay.
Then sometimes what we do is some kind of a show, either in the studio or out on the streets.
Mm-hmm.
So if any of you are interested in that, you should let us know, and we would support you in doing that. So one would be in the studio where you would kind of do a little bit of a skit, oh, where are you going to be on Saturday? And there's going to be food, and there's going to be this, and there's going to be that, and this is what we're talking about our town's future. So that's one way of doing it. Another way of doing it is apparently your cable TV has the capability of going outside. They don't all. So if they do, if you wanted to, we could come up with a script and you could go out with the cable TV people and just walk up to people on the street.
Joe Citizen interviews.
Right,
Yeah.
and just ask them questions. And it can be building up to the forum or afterwards, you know, to kind of let people know that things
What
are...
do you know about the comprehensive plan?
That could be fun.
To make it fun.
Yeah, exactly. So, you know, think about that, and if any of you are interested, just let us know, and, you know, we can provide support for that. So, as part of our role, we don't see us as being just, you know, we're gonna come in, we're gonna do this, and we're gonna leave. We want to be part of your whole process, so we want you to be building that process, and we're kind of plugging in. So what we would recommend is that after this session, that you plan for at least 2 more. So the second session would be a few months from now, where once you've completed your inventories, you would provide a summary of those. You would share the vision and the goals that we've developed from the first session, and then you would start to develop an action plan with the community. And then the third session, this is all written up for you, don't worry. The third session, you would unveil that action plan and ask people to provide feedback to who's going to do it, when are they going to do it, the phasing, is there funding, should there be additional partners. So we would just like to recommend that this be part of a longer process, and we're plugging into this first piece, but that you keep that in mind, and that if you agree, that you also promote that, so that
Right.
people understand.
So people know what's coming, next steps.
And that it's part of a whole iterative process. It's not, oh, I came to a visioning session and I went home and now they're not doing anything. And oh, that was a waste of time. You know, you just need to keep it alive, because it is a long process.
Right.
So if people know that that's what's coming, and approximately when, and then you keep on the website, you keep things, and on the Facebook page, you know.
But that's not part of your,
No.
not part of this contract,
No.
only the first session?
We're just for the visioning system, but we just want you to, as part of this, to just have that out there so that people feel that this was worth their while.
That this isn't a sort of a one-off kind of event, that it actually is part of a process, and that people can see what's coming and they understand what this is part of. And it's really important.
And you know, the other piece of that is sometimes when we come up with, because we've done this before, we've done only the visioning, right?
Yeah.
So we come up with our report, and it's a vision statement and goals, and people say, that's the plan?
Oh, yeah.
That's the plan?
Yeah.
Oh my God, and we appropriated this at town meeting for this? You know?
Yeah.
So we just want, it's a way of helping people understand, no, that's not the plan, this is the first step. This is the basis upon which we're gonna build a plan. So we just want you to, when you're talking to your networks, you know, to be able to converse with them in a way that builds confidence in the process. So we talked about this, okay. Town events, so town meeting is, when did you say,
May 6th.
May 6th?
Everybody's
Are there
town meeting's
any
May 6th.
other town events between now and then, where you can give out flyers?
Election.
The election is April
April.
30th, right?
April 30, town election.
Abby, when was our goal date to have this completed?
Well, there's no hard deadline.
No hard.
So we were hoping to move forward in the next year. But it's a fluid date.
I'm just
We can
thinking,
talk about
working
that later.
backwards,
Uh-huh.
when we would want the third session, and then,
So
just
when we
so
had
that,
talked before and kind of had looked at a timeline, I was thinking, you know, after the vision session, then we talked about having kind of like a public open house session before going to the planning board. So I think when you would kind of have another similar meeting where you kind of set up and have it open, like open house hours open, where people could come in and talk about what you found so far.
that
And
might be
then-
the second session.
So that's what I'm thinking would be like the
Yes.
second session, would be like your
Yeah.
open house. And then your third session would be probably a number of sessions, but when you go to the planning board meeting. So that's kind of your presentations, maybe 1 or 2 areas at a time, elements at a time is what we were kind of thinking. So it'd be, your third would be usually the Tuesday night planning board meetings, but we structure it to focus on 1 or 2 sections a night. That what you were thinking?
And I think part of it, we'll see how we'll play it out as it goes.
Right, of course. But just to, when you're
No, we got it.
communicating.
Yeah.
Well,
you
yeah,
know,
that's what
yeah.
I'm, yeah, so I think I'm a little confused
Okay.
about the third session where we might unveil or reveal some action plans. You're saying that that could be the same, but done in segments?
Yeah, I think
Our-
it would be
our
more,
little
I
segment.
was thinking.
Yeah, it
would
was
be
sort of a
more-
combo of doing what you and they are talking about, is exposing the draft plan, basically. But the planning board is the one that is going to be the one that approves this. So we were going to do it at a series of planning board meetings, all of which would be announced. As the topic of that planning board meeting is the comprehensive plan, land use and housing.
Okay.
So that you don't have to consume the whole thing at one time. You know, the planning board would have difficulty doing that. The public would have difficulty doing that. And there are people who we don't think, in spite of our comprehensiveness, are interested in that comprehensive piece of it. So they're interested in housing, or they're interested in open
Okay, I
space, so they can
understand.
choose when they
Thank
want to
you. Okay.
participate. And then we can tell them how integrated the whole thing is.
Okay.
Thrilled.
Well, one way that we do that is by, instead of doing it by element, doing it by goal.
Mhm.
So
Yeah,
that
we
way it
thought
gets
about
people that, cross.
Mhm.
Anyways, that's a whole nother discussion. So we'll work together on developing a list of all the relevant town departments, organizations, committees, boards, all that. But then we need to talk together here about what are the civic organizations. So we've got the library, community center, their community center.
Mhm.
Large employers in the area? Who are the large employers? Wegmans.
Yeah. Does anybody from Eversource do anything in Westwood?
Eversource?
All the car dealerships.
Car dealerships.
Dealerships.
Yeah, but are they residents?
Yeah, they're not necessarily residents.
Right.
Oh,
Yeah, I mean,
right.
most of the businesses, there's a big difference, I think, between people who live in Westwood and people
Who work in Westwood, okay.
But
So-
people who
Not
work
too
in
many
Westwood have a
people
stake.
live and work
Mhm.
in Westwood, other than people that are doing it in their own homes.
But the point's a good one. I mean, businesses have, as
Should have a
much
say.
at stake.
Right.
in
Yeah.
that way.
How
They
many
definitely
town
have to
employees
say. We have.
They may have something
That's
interesting
the
to
big
tell
one.
us.
I think
Yeah.
that's the biggest.
Yeah.
Big would be
The
the
police, fire,
police, fire,
town.
schools.
So those are in the towns, that's,
Right.
that's
Right.
what we're working on
That's the
that.
big.
Yeah, right.
You know, Fox Hill.
So,
Right.
But yes, so does it have to be?
oh, Fox Hill?
Fox Hill Senior.
Oh,
yeah.
senior,
Yeah.
oh.
Does it have to be only Westwood residents who weigh in? Because the large employers do pay the bulk of our tax base, so maybe
Well,
they
we
should
usually
be
try
in
to
this.
reach out to the business community and, they have a different take on things, but it would be important to know what they think.
Well, especially because one of the elements of a master plan is economic development. You're going to
Exactly.
want to communicate with your business community. There's just,
Because you want to know
Right.
what is working for them, what isn't, what could be better.
right. How do you not lose them?
Right, retaining.
Right.
Social clubs, do you have any Rotaries, Lions?
Yeah.
Okay. Arts Council, do you have an Arts Council? PTAs,
Westwood artists,
Oh, yeah.
right?
Westwood
There
Artists?
are Westwood artists, right?
Yep.
Yeah, but I'm not sure they're in a identified.
Cohesive organization.
Oh, I think they're an identifiable group, it's just that,
Oh, okay, but they don't have a name, okay.
The cultural council.
oh, no, they have,
Cultural
they're the
council.
Westwood artists,
Oh,
even have a Facebook page.
Well, how about doing it this way? Does anybody know of a group that we're not likely to come up with on our own? Big group.
Probably like
The
legal.
Young Women's Club, yeah, bringing fluid voters.
Young
You still have an
Women's
active-
Club?
You still have an active league here?
Yes, it's combined with local, so,
Oh, that's right.
Okay.
yeah.
Yeah. Yes, right.
We also have a CPAC.
CPAC?
Oh, yeah.
I think one of the things that Abby and I can do is that put some of these questions out to you. So we'll list what we've got,
Yeah.
say, can you add anything
Yeah.
to these? And we'll do that over time rather than take our time.
Okay,
tonight.
so I just had two more ones with neighborhood associations, if you could think about those.
Oh,
And then preschools, daycare centers, houses of worship. So I will send this out to you, and then you can start to fill it in. But one of the things is if each of you could start making a list of your networks. So are you on any committees? Are you on any boards? Are you in any clubs? Are you in a book club? Do you have any social groups? Just kind of make a list, and then who do you reach by email? Friends, relatives, neighbors, people you don't particularly like, that's okay. We want them too. So just kind of start to make these lists so that when the flyer is ready,
You're ready to move.
you're ready to just send it out, right? And you're going to send it out more than once. You'll send it out once way ahead of time, and then the week of. The other thing we would ask, and we'll talk about that next time, is that if you could make personal phone calls enough so that 5 people say yes. So that's probably going to be more than 5 calls, right? Where you get 5 people to say definitely yes. Then already we have a core group, and already there's a variety of people.
And call people you don't like as much as people you like.
Or people you don't agree with, let's say.
However
you want to do
diplomatic
it,
you want
right?
to put it, but-
Exactly.
There's a thing called Next Door Islington.
Oh, I was going to
yeah,
ask
right.
about
Yeah,
that.
and is there a Next Door Westwood too, or is it just Next Door Islington? Well, I know the Next Door Islington
Oh,
got a bunch of followers.
it's a social media.
Neighborhood.
We often find that
Oh,
in small
neighbors and-
towns.
I'm missing my cat. Have you seen this
Yeah.
happening lately?
Can I borrow a
Can I
saw?
borrow a saw? Yeah, that's a good one.
Yeah.
We also have an e-democracy page that somebody opened years ago. and I think
E-democracy?
It's called e-democracy something, but it's a Westwood page, email page, and people do the same thing on it, but I think there's a lot of followers on it.
So you want to think about how you can distribute this flyer electronically and how you can distribute hard copies. And if each of you could write down a list of both electronic and then hard copies, and then we can talk about, over email, we'll have to do it next time.
Sorry, can I add one more group? The Met Code.
Oh,
Very good
thank
point.
you. Yeah.
Mhm. Yeah, that's really good.
Have we exhausted this then?
Yes.
Pretty good job. Very
Good
good.
job.
Yeah.
All right, I think, as I was going to say, that Abby and I will try to come up with a way to keep you informed of the progress that we're all making in all this, because we'll be doing some of this independently, and so we'll bring it together and make sure it goes back out to you in the ensuing weeks, so that we know what we're all doing. Our next meeting of this group will be the 9th, is that it?
May 9th.
May 9th, and which you'll be totally aware of what's been accomplished in the interim period of time. So by all means, contact Abby if you think you're being left out of the loop for some reason. And we have other agenda items. Are you done then?
Yes.
Good, then.
Thank you.
I want to thank you very much for being so prepared for this evening. I think it worked out very well. You had a good plan, and I think you got some good responses.
We got
and
some
input
really
from
good
the
responses.
committee.
This is very
Thank
helpful.
you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Very
Good to
nice
see
to
you
meet
all.
all of you.
Fiona, nice to see you. I'm going to truncate the agenda a bit.
Well, I'll move that we approve the minutes November 19th.
Thank you, Steve.
Second.
Any comments? All right, let's vote. All in favor of approving the minutes as they appear?
Aye.
Okay, so they're approved. We were going to, I think Abby covered a little bit. The survey's open till next week, right?
Yes.
We've gotten 700 plus
Yes.
responses.
We have 700 responses so far. So it's open till Wednesday the 17th. If anyone wants to do any final push for it, we found that email blasts are the best, most effective way to get people, because we're able to track it, the source of where they got into the survey, either like the website, the school bulletin, Westwood Wire, an email. But email's been the leader. So direct emails to any of your contacts, that's very helpful. So I was
It'd be
thinking.
great to get to 1,000, wouldn't it?
Yes, it would, yeah. The open space plan that we did last year, that had 809. Let's go for at least 810. Just preliminary results of the survey. I did see, when I checked it before I came, we're really not reaching young people. We had 2 people under 18 respond, and then only 4 in the 18 to 25 category, and then still only 51 in the 26 to 35. So under 35 is
Wow,
under
under 35.
Yeah,
That's
only
a lot.
only the 50s and 26 to 35.
It might tell you something, right?
Yeah, yeah.
But so the plan was, so after the survey closes, I'll try to compile the results and get that out to you in advance so we can review it. And then we can review it at those full results at the May 9th meeting so that you can summarize them at the May 18th meeting.
We'll try to get that to you much sooner than that so you can sort of digest it.
Debbie, do you think you could get it to the high school just for the senior class, say, just because, you know, they're gonna be the range of 17 to 19? You know, they might, you know, just target that class versus like 9th to 12th grade? If you want that younger demographic, which I think is important. I think they have a lot to add.
Do you know how to get to them?
I mean, I would just send it to Sean Bevan and ask him if, I mean, I can send it to him. I mean, I just ask him if there's any means or way that he could
Convince.
maybe get it to homeroom teachers or something. Maybe the kids could do it in homeroom or something like that.
Good idea.
I mean, maybe
Nora?
Nora has some.
We did that with the open space plan, so I just sent a link to Sean and
Sean,
he distributed it to the entire email, the whole school.
Yeah.
If you're only interested in seniors, I'm sure you could limit
Can
it
we
to just
ask
the
it
senior
to go to
groups.
teachers too, not just students?
Okay. Yes.
You know what?
Yep.
Any other thoughts on the survey at this point? Any curiosity about it?
I do have a question. Is it on the planning board or our Facebook page so that I can share it again on Facebook?
Yes.
And it'll
Yep.
work?
On the Westwood Planning Board page, it's pinned at the top, so you can share that.
Thank you.
So Facebook's doing well too. It's the close second behind the email.
Awesome.
And we're pleased with the email and the Facebook thing because at least we know it's going to people that we expect a response from rather than just somebody picking it off the website, which is where it gets dangerous. The next item was going to be people reporting out, and I guess we won't do that in any kind of formal manner, except that if somebody has been doing some things that they think would be of value for the rest of us to know about, I'd offer somebody a minute or two to do that. Tom, for example?
Well, mine's pretty straightforward. It's facilities, and I've just been going to all the departments and meeting with the department head and then meeting with their board or commission. And you know, some people are not doing anything because they don't have a need. Some people have just done it, and some people are in the middle. So it's but they've all been very receptive, and I've gotten reports in and edited them, and because I have like 11 to do, so I figured I'd start now.
Appreciate that very much. Are you using open-ended question? You're explaining what the comprehensive plan and then...
Explaining what the process is, encouraging them that it's a great opportunity for them, and they'd rather work with me on it than have somebody else do it, because I have sat in their chair before.
Yeah.
I know most of these people.
Yeah. Any advice for anybody else of us who are doing interviews?
Just get to know the people. I mean, that's my leg up. I've
Yeah.
worked with half of them already, so.
And part of this effort is beyond getting the information back from them is to make sure that they realize that they're engaged in this process.
Right.
And so this interview is going to be one way of doing it, but as this plan progresses, it's increasingly important that each of the boards and committees and departments feel that they had their say, that they were contacted, they had, whether they chose to come to a meeting or not, they had their say in it. And because we're at the end going to be asking for letters of endorsement of what we're talking about. So not only is their information important in crafting the plan, but just as much is getting them vested in the process.
And I'll be reaching out to all of them for the visioning sessions, so.
Good.
Especially
Yeah, it'd
the
be
ones
great
like
if somebody-
COA and Youth and Family Services that come in contact with a lot of people.
Anybody else have anything that they'd like to share?
I actually had a question. John and I are working on town centers, and there's a little bit of chicken and the egg, right, with the boards that we're kind of supposed to interact with. I don't really know what the questions are to ask them yet, And I'm a little nervous that they're gonna ask me more questions than I'm gonna have answers for.
And give me an example of who you're trying to talk to, or who you plan on talking to.
So who are we supposed to?
Well, yeah,
Well, so is the Islington Task Force
Right.
no longer meets? That was one.
but I think we have had a conversation with the former, the early on chair of that, but I think we need to do some more, have some more conversation, how we go through meeting minutes.
Right.
So we've only just sort of begun the thinking there. I was thinking we want to reach out to some business owners as well. I think one of the questions that popped in both of our minds independently was the 2000 plan talked about 2 village centers, and I think we sort of get that, but there's kind of 4.
With
Right.
University Station
Oh,
now,
yeah,
is
yeah.
that?
as well as Route 1, which is a little disconnected, if not a lot disconnected, but it's still, in the town of Westwood, it's a commercial, it's a center of sort.
Mhm.
And so, I don't know if there's something to be done there.
Well, one of the interesting parts about what University Station is, it was originally conceived as it was going to be theoretically another
Yeah.
village.
Center, right.
Whether that has occurred or not would be an interesting question to find out from people who either operate a retail outlet there or live there or whatever,
Right.
or people who go there for one reason or another.
I actually thought of that for our logo. I thought it would be, I was thinking 2 sides, 1 town, but 2 centers, 1 town would be a good thing to throw in there too.
So the only thing I think we've always thought of Islington and Westwood centers as town centers, and then there clearly are other commercial areas, and
Yeah.
Route 1 would be that commercial area, and University Avenue, I guess, for better or for worse. I don't know what category that would fall into.
Yeah, and I think that's some of what we're sort of just teasing out
Yeah.
of our own brains. What does that look like?
Yeah.
And talk to
Yeah.
others about it. And one of them I was expecting to get to the planning board at some point. Once, I think we want to be a ways down the road
Yeah. Yeah.
for our thinking.
And Youth and Family Services, I think, was another, that just from the matrix that Abby had created. And so if we were to sit in front of Youth and Family Services, I'm not really sure what to ask.
What do they have to do with the town centers?
On the one hand, nothing, on the other hand, everything.
Gathering
Right.
places.
I mean, they're in Islington,
Yeah.
so, and yeah, gathering places.
Yeah, that's
So,
legit.
what would they be?
Nora, is there a business organization or the Business Development Advisory Board?
There's not a business development advisory board.
Is there, the
Group of
businesses
people
get
that
together?
we reach out to every now and then when there's a need for something, but the group no longer exists. I do have a list of all the businesses in town that we
It'd be
keep
nice if they
updated.
ever came, many of them
Come
came
together
together
for-
at one point and heard something, heard them talk. But if there isn't, there isn't.
There isn't.
Because we don't belong to a chamber of commerce or anything.
No.
We
There
do.
is.
We have
do
the
a
Ponset
Chamber of
Valley,
Commerce,
but,
right, the
you
Ponset
know.
Valley Chamber of Commerce, but the majority of Westwood businesses do not participate
Right.
in that.
Yeah.
And especially the larger businesses, they
Yeah.
really don't have any connection to Westwood.
But there are some like,
Outreach committee, they might. Maybe if we had the.
So
committee.
when we had a business committee, it wasn't so much an outreach committee as it was a
No.
committee to try and make Westwood a more business-friendly place.
yeah, there are some like the high street markets locally
Right?
owned.
Right.
And is Kiara?
Kiara
Yeah,
is,
so I mean, those would be good people to talk to.
BB's distributor.
I'm sorry?
BB's Cafe.
Suggestion.
Oh, that's right, yeah.
Starbucks, going to Stagecoach.
Does that help?
Yes,
Yeah,
that's
yeah.
great.
And the Ponce Valley TMA is reaching out to a lot of these businesses to try to, especially the ones in University Station who are members.
And probably a good time to, so
TMA.
you're not meant to be out there on your own necessarily, so if you really say, I don't know really what I'm supposed to be doing here, call Abby,
Right.
and she and Steve has been around for a while on planning board, and me and Nora. I mean, we can come up with some things for you to do. So while you have your assignments, you're not out there on your own necessarily. So do use this as a group, as a resource. All right, well, we've gone over our time.
Can I add
Yes.
one, just sort of one
Of course.
parallel to that, because I get the economic development, so
Yeah.
somewhat have a parallel. If you look at the old report, I could see, everything, things have changed. I mean, especially University Avenue, 109, a little bit, everything's changed, but some of them have changed a lot. University Ave changed a lot. Islington is changing a lot. If you look at the old report and say, well, how might this write for the new report? 109, okay, you can you'll get some feedback. You can see that. You can see Route 1. You can even see University Avenue. Islington, and I guess the reason I bring it up is I'd love to hear, and I think you probably are expressing the same, Islington is much harder. Because right now in the middle of Islington is a big hole.
Yeah.
So for the community to express what they want next, on University Avenue, what you see is sort of 80% done and you can see where it's going, where Islington in the center is a hole. And you can see a little of it, but we don't have the advantage of having that new building done where people would say, I love it or I don't love it. So I think that's going to be a very difficult, I feel like that's a very difficult thing to write up. I'm hoping the survey and the vision will give us that answer. But I think it would be helpful if everybody helps us listen. Because I think that's going to be a very difficult takeaway unless the survey and the vision is very, very clear as to this is what the people want.
Yeah. And I think that really a good point, Peter. And maybe I don't know what Daphne has got in her mind is the questions that would be asked of the roundtables, but it strikes me as that if you're saying we're not getting a clear idea of what people think Westwood or Islington Center could or should be or is, then we would like that to be a question that these tables take on. So if it really is not crystallizing, then it's a good opportunity to
Well,
try
I
to
think
do
even
that.
if it is crystallizing for us, I think that's kind of a key question.
Yeah.
I think that's what's going to show up for a lot of people is what does this thing create as a vision for those things that we see most distinctly as we drive through town, and those are the town centers such as they are.
Right.
And it's more than just the center Islington. There's kind of a string of Islington, as there is a string along High Street, as there is at University Village as well as Route 1.
And if there's if you need any satisfaction for having decided to become involved in the process, I mean, the 2000 plan did have a lot of things in it that actually happened.
Well, and that was my other point.
Yeah.
It was absolutely, I think that's something we really need to get going on that. I think we need a map that shows what's actually happened in the last 20 years and what's in the process of changing. Islington most distinctly, the remainder of University Village. Those are huge. The zoning ordinances, the overlay districts, those are huge, right? And is there anything we should be doing more beyond that? And I think we've got a great thing already there. So maybe those are worthwhile questions.
Well,
Now what?
Yeah, and traffic is an issue for both of
Both
your
sides.
committees and sort of tangentially for a lot of others. And how do you address that issue? Economic development, how do you in the town center? We're not experts on roadways and how to divert or best accommodate traffic and turnoffs, and do we have too many lights along 109? Is that a question anybody on any of our committees would ask? Do we, I don't know, I feel like we need more guidance besides what those two ladies were giving us tonight. And I said that at the last meeting, and I'm saying it again, we need a professional who knows how to do a comprehensive plan and does them to guide us in each of our areas, I feel. So, fine.
Hang in there. We'll do it. All right, we went over. Apologize for that, but I think we only have them for a certain period of time, so it's important for them to have their say. I appreciate you taking all this time, though, and you'll hear from us again. So thanks very much.
Thank you. Thank you.